Call the meeting to order. This is the June 21, 2016 regular board meeting of the Frankfort Plant Board. Michelle, would you call the roll of the directors, please? Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Crosby?
Present.
Mr. Baldwin?
Here.
Ms. Rosen?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
The first two items on the agenda this evening are all action items pertaining to presented minutes of past board meetings. Minutes are in the materials for the May 17 regular board meeting, the May 23 special board meeting, May 24 special board meeting, May 24 special board meeting, May 25 special board meeting. Members have all had an opportunity to review those. We can take them as a group unless somebody has a comment or question or something as to any particular set of minutes.
I move we take action items 1 through 5 as a group.
Yes.
Second.
Motion is to approve them. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, the minutes presented are approved. Agenda item number 6 is an action item. Consider approval of workers' compensation insurance renewal. I see Kim and I see Charlie here.
Good afternoon. I have Charlie Hamilton with us. Charlie's with Powell Walton Millward, who is our agent for our workers' comp and our general liability coverage. He's going to talk to us about renewing today, or renewing for the 16-17 fiscal year with Keeney as our workers' comp carrier. Charlie.
Thank you. This is the first year, actually, in 11 years that Keeney's had a rate increase. So you actually have a slight increase in your workers' comp premium. It's up for projected for the coming year. That'd be 2016-2017, $4,624.87 more than last year, which represents an increase of 3.7%. That's due to a couple of factors, not the least of which is the fact that Keeney had a rate increase on their workers' comp, which, like I say, is the first time in 11 years they have. But in spite of that, your premiums are still lower than they were 5 years ago. So we would certainly ask the board consideration to approve renewing the workers' compensation with Keeney for the coming year. Now, I'm happy to address any questions.
Members? If there's no questions or comments, do we have a motion? I move that we approve the workers' compensation insurance renewal as presented and quoted by Kimi.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Charlie. Agenda item number 7 is an information item. It's a presentation by Matt Fiscus from the Kentucky Home Performance. Is Mr. Fiscus here? Anybody here from Kentucky Home Performance? It's not. Okay. Next item is moved up on the agenda from number 32 to be heard next. This is also an information item. This is from Mr. Chris Moore, KentuckyWired Project. Is Mr. Moore here? So far. Okay. All right. Might be running late. Okay. Number 8, action item. David, this is you. Electric, water, cable, financial, statistical data.
Good evening. My name is David Denton. I'm the Finance Director for the Frankfort Plant Board, also a licensed CPA here in Kentucky. Would like to quickly, considering the large agenda we have, just to go through briefly where the Plant Board stood financially at the end of May 31st, 2016. FPB is a fiscal year ended June 30 nonprofit municipal utility. So that means we do not have a profit motive. Any funds we have above our revenues collected will be to pay down debt, save for our reserves, and anything else the board might have in mind. I'd like to start on page 57 with the statement of net position. This is the for-profit name for the balance sheet for the Frankfort Plant Board. So on page 57 of our board packet, as of May 31st, 2016, the Frankfort Plant Board had total assets of just over $154 million. Of that, 70% of the board's assets is in property, plant, and equipment. Net of accumulated depreciation for the period was just over just over $108 million. You can see on the third column there that is the, we've had an increase above our depreciation for the period, just under $10.4 million, which is reflective of the amount of capital additions we've had for the period. So you can see how those additions are starting to increase that property, plant, and equipment balance. I'd like to look at our liabilities briefly, lines 75 through 125. Total liabilities for the period ending May 31st were just under $84 million. And also our net position for the period, lines 130 through 160. As of May 31st, 2016, the net position for the Frankfort Plant Board was just under $70.5 million, bringing total liabilities and net position to just over $154 million for the period. I'd like to move over to page 58 and go through a required report that we present to the board each month. This is our cash and investment schedule that goes through and gives a detail of where our cash balances, what financial institutions they're held, and what restricted or unrestricted accounts. You can see for the period on page 58, line 60, total restricted cash as of May 31st was just over $11.7 million. Unrestricted cash on line 100, just under $10.4 million, giving total restricted and unrestricted cash of just over $22 million. On line 150, we had total investments as of May 31st at just under $6.6 million, with $6.4 million restricted and just over $117,000 unrestricted. Those investments are composed solely of certificates of deposit held at local financial institutions. I'd like to move to page 59 and just give something we do each month is just go show the board our bonds, leases, and loans payable for the period. We started out this fiscal year, July 1st, 2015, at just over $46 million in debt between bonds, leases, and loans for all three divisions. For the period, the Plant Board has borrowed just under $5.2 million for this 11-month period, and we've also paid down just over $3.8 million for the period, giving a total loan balance as of May 31st, 2016 of $47,397,000. You can see our obligations principal due in 1 year, just over $4.2 million. And I believe, as we discussed in our budget meetings, we're looking to see that balance decrease over $15 million over the next 5 years. Last thing I'd like to cover is just to show financial performance-wise where FPB was as of May 31st, 2016 on page 60. Change in net position, line 15 for the electric division, just over $4.8 million. Keep in mind that there is a refund we received from our wholesale electric power of over $2.5 million. Water, line 30, increase in net assets of just under $1 million for the period. And line 45, increase in net assets for the period for the cable telecom division, just under $2.8 million, bringing total revenue for the 11 months of just under $87.4 million, against expenses of just under $78.9 million, for a total increase in net position of $8.5 million. As you can see, most of the increase in net position compared to budget is due to cost controls that we've had within the Plant Board of spending less than we budgeted to spend. So that's a good thing. We have, as always, a summary of our cash activity for all accounts, and also check registers for our two main operating accounts. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. If not, It gives you a pretty good snapshot of where we are with 11 months of the year.
Good budgeting, David.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the financials submitted by David?
So moved.
Second. Did we have a second?
Yes.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. I hear no noes, so motion carries.
Mr. Ludwig, I think our guest is here with KentuckyWired.
KentuckyWired.
Chris Moore.
Okay. Mr. Moore? KentuckyWired? Good, sir. Okay. Yes, sir, please, if you will, use the podium. Introduce yourself, please. And this is a meeting of the Frankfort Plant Board.
Yes, yes.
I think you're here by our
Yes, sir.
invitation, I believe.
Rush hour traffic, yes. And, good evening, I guess at this point, good evening. I'm Chris Moore with the Executive Director of the Kentucky Communications Network Authority, or KCNA. And KCNA is the agency that is overseeing the construction of the project known as KentuckyWired. I think most of you are probably familiar with that project, or you've been briefed on it prior to this meeting, is my understanding. So I won't go over the previous ground. But my understanding is you were looking for maybe an update on as far as progress on the construction, and then probably in relation to Frankfort and the impact on that. As a reminder, as you may recall, well, let me back up one part.
Actually, for the benefit
Yes.
of the folks in the audience and people on TV, would you mind giving us a quick overview for the folks that may not know what KentuckyWired is just in general?
Sure, absolutely. Last year, the Commonwealth entered into a public-private partnership arrangement to construct a statewide fiber optic network throughout Kentucky. The project's known as KentuckyWired. It would be a middle mile project, which means it's not building the last mile to the homes, but it's building a backbone network that people can hook into, or companies can hook into, or communities can hook into. And and then as part of that project, the Commonwealth created an agency called the Kentucky Communications Network Authority, and of which I'm the new executive director. And I'm happy I can take any questions on that later if anybody wants more information on that. So the original focus is on Eastern Kentucky portion of the network. That would be, as far as the project itself, it's being completed in phases, and each phase is in different rings corresponding to those phases. And right now the focus is on rings 1A and 1B. So that means, and Frankfort is included in what we would call ring 1A. So as far as the construction, it is proceeding. We're making some progress. So as part of the project, we do have to get certain agreements in place, in particular pole attachment agreements, because 85% of the project is aerial, which all that means really is it's attaching the fiber to the poles instead of having to bury it underground. And so to do that attachment, we have to come to an agreement with different providers. So we've got a lot of those agreements in place, majority of them actually, but there are still some we're still that are still outstanding. And unfortunately, that has impacted our schedule to some extent, so there will be some delay. We're still trying at least to get arms around exactly what that impact will be. So we're working through that. So I don't have any firm dates at this time to give you as far as when Frankfort would come online, or when that ring 1A would be completed. We do know that obviously the delay has been in several months so far, so we would predict that would be a corresponding several month delay in the original completion date that was originally envisioned under the original project construction. So that's really about the only update I have as far as the timeline. Again, we're still trying to figure out exactly what that delay means for the overall project. Yes?
Do you think it'll be this year, 2016?
No, ma'am, I do not believe it would be completed this year, in 2016.
For this area even?
For Frankfort, correct.
What was the original completion date?
I think the original scenario would have been May of this year. But again, due to these supervening events, particularly the pole attachment agreements that are not in place, it is delayed the overall construction.
Is there a point where you expect to be approaching the Frankfort Plant Board about pole attachment through Frankfort?
Yes.
Do we have a date?
I do not have a date for that, no.
No idea when that is.
No.
Where
But
are-
I can definitely get back to you on that. so.
Okay. Where are you guys now as far as your rollout?
Well,
How far have you gotten along with the pole attachment agreements?
Well, we've made a lot of progress. I think we've actually gotten over 30 to 40 probably agreements in place, including AT&T, which is the bulk of a lot of them. But again, we still have some carriers that we're still negotiating with, unfortunately. So, but we're hoping to resolve that as quickly as possible.
Do you have targeted transport costs for communities such as ours once the fiber's in place?
No, I don't believe those calculations have been made, but I'm happy to ask my staff about that. But I don't believe, no, we've made those calculations yet, as far as and I'm happy to get back to you on if we have more information on the pole attachments when we will contact you about that.
Okay, thanks.
So at this point in time, you have no idea when Frankfort?
Correct. That
But
would be-
but
that'd be-
realistically, we would expect 12 months, 24 months, something in that kind of, do we have a gross idea of what the overall project scope is?
It's, again, it's difficult to say because the overall engineering design is one where they like to put as much fiber as possible at one time. So in that respect, what we've been doing is a lot of engineering design, a lot of site design, a lot of those things. But so there hasn't been a whole lot of actual, the laying of the attachment to the poles. And again, because from the network quality perspective, the more you have to splice the fiber, or the more you have to have different or stop and start construction, it impacts the quality of the network. So we're sort of trying to calculate that best case, engineering and design versus the potential delay and see what we can do on that. So that's why it's difficult at this point in time to say, even with a 12-month period or longer. All I can say is I know we've probably at the point of an 8-month delay just based on where the project I think was originally scheduled to be. So you can maybe just move that out. We're looking at, can you make that time up? We don't know yet. Or, what the impact is going to be overall. So it's hard to specifically, and unfortunately, so it's hard to specifically say, well, this is where we'll be. I don't know what the delay for Frankfort is because, again, we're not sure of the overall delay on the entire 1A and 1B. So, so that's really it in a nutshell. So.
Was any thought given to putting it underground?
Sure, but the economics change very dramatically when you do that. I mean, obviously, 15% of the project will be underground. Probably some in Frankfort, for that matter, just because it's an urban area versus rural. But usually the most economical way to build a network is to do aerial, which would be attached fiber to a utility pole. So. But sure, in certain areas, that's going to could potentially be an alternative. But certainly, we're trying to, make this cost efficient as well, as far as the build. So,
Is the priority to complete Eastern Kentucky first, or has there been any progress there?
yes, as I said, Eastern Kentucky is the focus. But what I was trying to relay is that actually Frankfort's included in that as part of the original network design and construction, because it's 1A ring. There are two rings that are the original focus, 1A and 1B, and Frankfort's included in that original.
Oh.
That being, which logically, because Frankfort's where, again, the theory is to hook in the state agencies to this middle mile network at some point, and other partners along the way. So Frankfort's an integral part of that, obviously, so that's why they're part of the original focus and the original phase of the project.
So is the eventual goal of the fiber optic cable that you pull through to be more of a common carrier kind of infrastructure, so we can expect to have multiple providers for bandwidth on the fiber?
Well, yes. Actually, again, being middle mile, so it's what we call a wholesale network, not retail. So the Commonwealth wouldn't be providing retail, like you wouldn't be buying your internet service from Kentucky, from the Commonwealth. I mean, again, the goal is to hook in all the state agencies, at least that's a start. But by definition, it's going to be an open network. So for instance, if you wanted to start your own ISP, you would have the option to hook into the middle mile network if you'd like, and you could build out to other facilities if you'd like, absolutely.
And do you have a list of the carriers that have expressed interest in providing bandwidth services on the KentuckyWired project?
I'm not sure that we've had, I don't think we have a list, but, you know, I know we've gotten a lot of interest from communities and certainly other providers, yes. We recently, for instance, and then we're partnering with some local providers as well. We just announced a partnership with Cincinnati Bell, for instance. It's covering the northern region, which is also an integral part of the eastern portion because it's bringing broadband down I-75, to Frankfort too, actually. And then we just announced a letter of intent with East Kentucky Network to form a similar strategic partnership where we share in the build out as far as some of the last mile construction and actually some of the backbone construction. And that's a group of 5 ILECs that are in eastern Kentucky. So those are some local providers that are actually have obviously interest in it, and we're talking to a lot of other providers as well about that. So in different places throughout the Commonwealth.
Is there an online resource with just kind of current status and where the project is?
We do have a website. It's probably a little outdated at this point, but it's KentuckyWired.kentucky.gov. I think that's right.
It is.
Yes. And again, we are actually, again, the agency was just formed, so we're almost, I like to say we're a startup ourselves. So we are, yes, the website is a resource. We hope to improve that. We're working on improving that day to day. But at some point, yes, we would hope that would have very up-to-date data on what you're asking right now. So again, a lot of the site prep's going on. So we are contacting communities as far as hooking in the state agencies. And that's what I was referred to as site prep. It'd be like you're preparing like a state agency that you prepare. You go and view the site, prepare it, and figure out what facilities you need to construct or whatever to hook into the middle mile network, that sort of thing. That's been going on throughout East Kentucky. So, and in Frankfort. So I would just say stay tuned and don't be shy about contacting us. And we really hope to get our arms around it more in the next few weeks or so.
That's great. We certainly appreciate you coming in and giving us an update.
Okay, that was great. Well, thank you for having us, and we appreciate your interest in this. And we look forward to working with you going forward, definitely. So thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
I don't know about the other guy.
Mr. Ludwig, I think our guest, Matt Fiscus, is here with Kentucky Performance.
Mr. Fiscus, Kentucky Home Performance.
Yes.
This is Frankfort.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you everyone for being here. And the IT technician is going to set up a very brief PowerPoint. It'll help me go through this and help explain what Kentucky Home Performance is. And as soon as he gets that pulled up, I'll go right through it as fast as I can. Show of hands, how many people are familiar with Kentucky Home Performance? Okay, then I've got a lot of work to do. Okay, great. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get a clicker or not. And again, this is brief. I'll go right through it for you. All right, thank you very much. Okay, very quickly. Kentucky Home Performance is a program that's financed now through the state of Kentucky, through Kentucky Housing Corporation. I'll go through a couple of slides, but I have to apologize. I'm actually an energy nut. I actually really, really want to help not just utility companies, but consumers and contractors reduce energy. And there's a lot of reasons why our homes use too much energy, and this is why we want to partner with the plant board. Very quickly, I go into the construction side of it and why our homes waste so much energy. If you look at this real quick, this is a very typical crawl space in Kentucky. There are millions of these. If you look at that insulation, the yellow stuff hanging down from the floor, that's called R19. Most people in the world don't know what R19 means or R13 means. It means it takes 19 minutes for heat to transfer through that, or 19 minutes for cold air to transfer through that. If you look at that picture, you'll see a home on a crawl space. If it's 6 degrees outside, it'll go right through that vent and go right through that floor in no time at all. That is what's running your thermostat. That is why your house is cold. That is why your utility bill is high. So this is what Kentucky Home Performance was kind of developed off of. I'm an ex-Energy Star builder, national award-winning builder who actually taught a lot of these things in Washington on how people could actually fix these things. So if you see these types of homes, a lot of us, myself almost included until I fixed it, lived in these homes. You'll see these attic levels. It's the same concept. That right there is a 2x6 floor joist with 3 inches of insulation. What that means, it has R9 in the attic, which means it takes 9 minutes for you to lose all the conditioned air that you just paid for. Today's building code is R38. So at Kentucky Home Performance, we want to help homeowners, help the plant board, and help contractors reduce our energy load. As we shift from coal to other sources, we can actually reduce the energy waste. It's almost like adding miles per gallon to your car, I promise you. So if you look at those attic levels, R9 in that attic, 9 minutes to lose its heating and cooling. The thermostat runs all day, all night, your utility bill goes up. Take that to an R38, you reduce your energy loss, and your bill goes down, and you're more comfortable at the same time. Very big pet peeve of mine as a construction guy, duct leakage. If you're paying to condition your air, either heating or cooling, and it's leaking out in your crawl space or leaking out in your attic, your bill goes up and you're not even comfortable. So this is why we developed Kentucky Home Performance. It's a great program that'll help homeowners look at their house, see how it's wasting money, and our precious resources, our utilities. We can actually reduce our waste by going through things like Kentucky Home Performance. In a nutshell, Kentucky Home Performance was developed in 2010 with federal ARA funds, America Recovery Act. We were put together to help contractors get out there, save energy, and create jobs. Now we're currently state funded. When we transition from federal funds, we provide low and good loans for energy efficiencies. And I'll briefly touch on that in just a couple slides. And you can also incorporate our loans through the Kentucky Housing Corporation with manufacturers rebates and state and federal rebates. There's a lot of pros to this. There's not very many cons. It's designed to generate energy efficiencies. It's there for multiple reasons. It's here to help homeowners, it's here to help the utility companies, and it's here to help contractors create jobs. There's a lot of pros on that side. We also offer, through our program, if a contractor goes through our program to give you this service, we'll do a quality assurance on a few jobs and make sure that your house is taken care of well. And we actually track all of the utility reduction that we do on all of our jobs, and we can measure that through the state. We're in 120 counties out of 120 counties of Kentucky. We're a partnership with over 25 utility companies. We work with contractors throughout the state. Not all contractors are in our program. They have to go through some training. So that's a great point. If you are interested in doing this in your own home, even the board of directors, visit our website and you can help find a contractor in your area. You can click on your county and it'll help you find a contractor. As well as I'm the director of the program for this side of it, I'll help you find a contractor in your county. We use unsecured loans. This is a great thing and it's not very heard of. These are unsecured loans, very easily accessible, and they go up to $20,000. I've got a chart that'll show you why we go up that high in just a minute. But if you see, we use energy software to help you make that decision if you're going to reduce your energy or not. Our contractors can actually use a tablet to actually do that. Make some really, really nice energy calculations utilizing the weather. So it's very accurate. It's actually really nice stuff. I don't want to go into great detail and bore everybody with that. We have a lot of different things that we have helped nationally develop. The single measure access, where a contractor could only have to do one thing to your home, we'll allow that in our program, where previously it had to be the entire house. If you're interested in being involved with this program, or if we can work with the board on how to help develop and market it this with the board, I'd love to actually sit down with everybody and show them how we can do that together as a group. This is just a real quick summary of how you could actually utilize this program. If you had a contractor come through our program, look at your home, see what's wrong with it, why it's using so much energy, and say, for instance, for example, you needed $10,000 worth of work. If you did your entire house through that, in that $10,000, it's only $136 a month. From the business that I come from and the state agencies that I work for, this is a game changer in trying to change our energy waste. Because if someone came to you and said, I can fix your house, give it more miles per gallon, no one that I know of, myself specifically, can't write a check for $10,000, but now you can finance it through a great state program and actually reduce your energy load. Just think about that. If we did that to 8 million homes, how many people could actually do that, and how much energy we could reduce? So, in a nutshell, we are a Kentucky Housing Corporation program that helps homeowners reduce their energy through monthly payments. And it's a great system. Think about it, once that 5-year loan is paid off, all of your energy savings is just money in the bank. We have other programs that we work with. They're partners of ours, and we actually help them with some of our funding that we have received from the state. We also help a program called Smart MH, where we help replace manufactured housing or mobile homes that were energy inefficient. So homeowners with manufactured mobile homes can actually get energy efficient homes. Those manufactured homes sometimes have $400 a month electricity bills. This is something that we can help reduce on that, and they use a lot of energy that they should not be using. We also work with Community Ventures, and we've helped them start a pilot to where we can look at helping them replace manufactured homes with Energy Star homes as well. MESID is another program that we work with House Smart. They developed a really great pilot where actually people can actually do these energy retrofits and put it on their utility bill. It's not that simple, but it is a program that we actually work with, and we actually give them funding to help them do that. Just wanted to give you my contact information. I'd love to help anyone and everyone and the board see how we can help Frankfort area reduce your energy load, because I promise you, your home can reduce its energy load. It's just like giving it miles per gallon that you didn't have before. But you cannot do that to your car, so we can do that to your house. That's all I have. Yes, ma'am.
Well, a couple questions.
Sure.
Currently, you're state funded. Is
Yes.
that you have so much money for 2 years and then it'll be up for renewal, or how does that work?
We are, when we received our state funding, we received that state funding in 2014, and that is currently running through 2016, December 31st. We have applied for additional funds. We feel good about it. We have not received that okay yet, but you know, we've been doing this since 2010. We've had great results. So that's a great question. Right now, we're funded currently through December 31st of 2016. So I highly recommend everybody do it now.
Okay. Okay. And then you mentioned tablet-based evaluation. So that's a contractor has something on a computer, a questionnaire they go through, or what is
He
that?
can. That's a great question. They'll actually go through the home. They have options. Some of them are very savvy with the tablet, and some of them are very savvy with their laptops. Some of them will do it with the paper, just walk through, and they'll send it to me and my staff, and we'll put it through the software for them. It just depends on the contractor's training and what they've gone through. But it's really a great thing, because when we put it through that energy software, it's called modeling software.
Okay.
We'll take the information on the home's utility bills, which they have been given to us through that for about 12 months period.
Wow.
Also, it'll take into consideration the weather for the past 12 months, which is starts to become very accurate when you start to run those algorithms. We'll look at the square footage and the volume, and we'll determine, hey, if you switch out this heating and air system and put in this heating and air system, and you add this much insulation with this much square footage, you'll reduce your utility bill by this percentage. That's how it works.
Is that the same software that HouseSmart uses?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. It's called Compass and Surveyor. It's very accurate.
Okay. And then one last question. The loans that people can get, I noticed from your website, they're 4% and 8%.
Correct.
And how is it different?
Awesome. I'm glad you asked. All right. We are an energy program. We're not just a loan program. We want to help people reduce energy more than we want to do loans. But so with that said, we want to incentivize more energy reduction per home. So if you do a whole house, attic, crawl space insulation, airflow, heating and air, whole house, we want to incentivize that, and we'll give you that loan at 3.99%. If you just do one single measure, say for instance your air conditioner broke or your heating system's out, and you called one of our contractors and they switched out that one piece of equipment, we call it a single measure. That's not as much energy savings, but that's what you needed at that time. We'll let you have that at 7.99. So we're really just trying to incentivize more energy savings by lowering the interest rate.
Okay, thank you. And I think one of the things on your website that's mentioned that's covered is putting in solar.
That's brand new for us. We're very excited about that. I'm glad to bring that up. Traditionally, that's a great talking point as well. 3.99% interest rate is for a whole house. I did kind of miss over, if you do geothermal, or now we just introduced solar, you immediately get 3.99% because that's a great energy saver and it's a renewable. It's part of our grant as well to incentivize renewables. So you can do solar, you can do geothermal, and whole house at 3.99%. I think that's a 7-year loan, which is kind of creative because it makes the monthly payment really low instead of a 5-year loan. Kind of got creative with our lending agency there to make it a really small monthly payment for a lot of homeowners to do that. So again, that's a game changer for homeowners who wanted to do solar and could not do a $20,000 solar installation. There's not many people that want to write a check for $20,000, but now you can actually do it through us through a monthly payment. And you're going to save a ton of money on your energy bill by implementing solar, so it'll start to pay off itself very quickly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is your program only available to homeowners? There's no facility to be able to loan the money?
Great question. We are for residential, single-family homeowners only, owner-occupied. We don't do rentals or we don't do investment properties. Would have loved to have gotten into commercial because we could save a lot more energy that way, but this is definitely, our grant is for residential homes.
Do you guys have a facility in place to track the success rate after the contractor leaves the house? Do you have a way to go back and do an audit and give the homeowner
We haven't
some
done that
sense
with
of-
our software. We thought about doing that. It was very expensive to do that. So we actually always have the homeowner's information in our system, and we can do a follow-up, but it's not really that technical.
I see.
We're just going to ask the homeowner, how much has your utility bill gone through, as a kind of a follow-up, if you will, but not really technical.
Do you have any sense of what the default rate is on the loans that have been?
It's actually very low. I don't want to go into a log board spiel, but Kentucky Home Performance put all of our loans together with Pennsylvania's and 2 other states, and we put those together and actually transitioned that into the second market. And when we put all those loans together, it was very creative. It helped us actually see that I think we only have a 2% default rate. Because these typical homeowners that want this type of retrofit to their home, they've paid their bills on time. They're interested in lowering their utility bill. So they have a really low 2% default rate.
And that bundling, those bundled notes are all for energy improvements?
Exactly, right. Yeah, we kind of opened up a kind of a gamut, if you will, for other states to put that in. We call it WHEEL, Warehouse for Energy Efficient Loans. And that is actually helping us create more capital is what we're doing. Because what we've done is we've put all those together so we can hopefully, once we have received new funding for 2017 is our goal, we'll have more capital to work off of, which a goal with more capital and then putting those loans together with other states would hopefully be able to lower our interest rates. That's the whole reason we would like to do that, with more capital.
In partnering with you, is there any cost to the plant board for?
Not at all. No, we are state funded. We have no profit aspirations. So I would suggest, and it's something we could talk offline, but there's no question that I think the best partnership between our board is to make sure that your clients get these waivers. You know, it's not a waiver, it's a flyer to just say, hey, I want to call the number, I want to apply for a loan, I want to have a contractor come out and look at my home, see if they can reduce energy and do it on a monthly payment.
So our involvement would really be then just to help promote this program.
Agreed. Yeah, there's just marketing, if you will, whether it goes out on your website or through your billing system, it would just be marketing, honestly.
Since you're 100% state funded, what happens if this is the last fiscal year you receive state funding? Is that
We'll
if-
probably work with our lenders, since we have so much money in that wheel warehouse for energy efficient loans, and see if we can get maybe a third-party bank to come in and actually fund us. That's something we're kicking around. And we have a short timeline on that, but it's not unheard of, because, you know, state programs and federal programs, they do lose their funding on a regular basis. And the banks that we work with are actually out of California and Pennsylvania, and, you know, they have a ton of capital, so it's on their radar. Okay, how do we keep this program around? So it's something that we're putting on the draft table.
Well, certainly, thank you. Very
Well,
informative.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here, and hope we can help as many people as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah. Love for everybody to have those. And my email's on the back, and I can help in any way. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. I'll leave these at the door. How about I let you do that?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
That's very interesting. Okay, where are we? Agenda item number 9 is information item, public comment period. We have a public comment period in our meetings, regular meetings. Anybody who cares to make a public comment is welcome to come to the podium, and we ask that you identify yourself and tell us whether or not you're a Frankfort Plant Board customer. You do not have to be a Frankfort Plant Board customer. Ask only that you keep your comments concise and brief, and keep in mind that we do televise our programs. So do we have anybody here this evening who cares to make public comment?
My name is Suzanne Gray. I'm the president of the Tanglewood Neighborhood Association, and I am a Frankfort Plant Board customer. A year ago this August, the residents and property owners in Tanglewood sent a letter to the FPB asking for an open meeting to explain to us what was being constructed in our backyard. We now have a dozen satellite dishes, a parking structure for bucket trucks that rise above our homes, and a 3-story industrial building to remind us every day of what the scope of that project turned out to be. It is still unbelievable to me that this initiative was undertaken without any input or involvement from the neighborhood adjacent to the property. Much has happened since that time, and the Tanglewood Neighborhood Association continues to work toward an appropriate plan to mitigate as much as possible damage that, quite frankly, cannot be undone. Some FPB staff in recent days have either said outright or suggested that now that the building is complete, it doesn't look so bad, and that the neighborhood is no longer motivated as it once was. We are here today to show you that this is not the case. Today, we call on the FPB to make every effort to present an appropriate mitigation plan as soon as possible. It must include all of the elements provided for in the City Commission's directive of October 1, 2015, which was also agreed to by the FPB board. It must also address the property as a whole. But we are here for another reason today, too, the reservoir. With the lessons of the head-end project in mind, we also call on the FPB to work closely with the public on the design and construction plan for the new reservoir. Presenting a completed design plan to the public that allows only for cosmetic changes will not be acceptable. We ask today for the FPB to hold a public meeting on the status of the reservoir as soon as possible. During this meeting, we would like to hear the plans for the reservoir, including design options, what inconveniences we can expect during construction, and how public safety is being protected in the interim and will be protected during construction. Frankfort is best served when our public entities work closely with the people they serve. The FPB has recently taken some positive steps toward becoming more transparent. I'm pleased to be able to offer these comments to you today and recognize that this would not have been possible a few months ago. We applaud these efforts and hope the FPB will continue moving in the direction of becoming a community-minded partner in Frankfort. Thank you.
Do we have any further public comments?
Good evening. My name is Kathy Warren, and yes, I am a Frankfort Plant Board customer. And I believe that you all should have some comments that I sent to you on the website or on the Frankfort Plant Board site. I was told that you all had that in hand, so I'm not going to repeat anything pretty much that I said in that. I
What was the
told that you had
subject?
it.
On what subject?
Several.
Oh, okay.
Several comments, so.
Okay.
I hope y'all have that. I talked to Kathy today, and she said that it was supposed to be with you all. Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. There's a couple of things I just want to speak up on. I think the very first comment I'd like to make, and might make it quickly, is on the switch over to the Big Rivers communications billing, that they're going to be taking over our phone service. I did note, and looking at my bill, that this will be that the PSC regulates these telephone rates. It's starred on our bill. So my question to you all is, when the PSC approves a rate increase or a decrease, will this appear on our bills? Or will it appear as a pass-through? We would read it in the paper. Just a comment that I know that PSC does regulate several utilities. I've worked there for several years. So that's one comment. And then let's move on to our cost of our increases. This is a pass-through from KU. I'm very well of that. And I do see that it's broken down, and you all will see part of this funding. Then I look down and I see that our water's going to increase. Now my question is that sewer going to increase with this? If so, how much? So, in leading that to that question, on the sewer, do we know how much the sewer will increase with our water rates? And will that be a factor? Maybe some of you that are employed here will know that question. Now, back to the water. I believe, how much was that rate? I think the cost in here was, the cost residentially is going to cost us $1 per day. Is that correct in the article in the newspaper? And so that's an awfully lot. The cost will increase residentially to $1 per day. That's 30 days, if that's correct here. I'd like to go forward with the cycle billing. I would hope that you all would change your minds on the cycle billing. I understand the reasonings behind it because of the traffic that you get during billing days. I know that there's lots of customers who have, they pay cash, and it does take up a lot of the employees' time dealing with that. And then the last issue I have is, I guess I was pretty appalled at seeing the headlines in the State Journal that our new building, or your all's new building, is going to feature a health and wellness facility and a terrace, a locker room and showers. That's a pretty fancy building we're building for you all, and I hope that you all remember that the customers is helping pay in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Is there anybody else who cares to make public comment?
Good evening, I'm Robert Roach. I'm just here as a property owner, no other reason. I think I spoke to y'all about sort of the same topic a couple of years ago. Things have sure changed. There was one other person besides me at that meeting. I think it was on a cable increase. I was looking at y'all's mission statement, and I'm thankful for the plant board things that they've done. One part of it I'm getting a little nervous about, so I just wanted to bring it to y'all's attention as a person who spends a lot of money on electricity and water, and even more on sewer, and I brought it up with them too, and haven't had much luck there either. But on the electric and the water, when you all pass through, and I just bring it up when we have pass-throughs because that seems to be the best opportunity because people have it in mind. But you know, when you pass through something, let's say your cost from KU is 8%, and you pass all of that through, and then you may tack on a couple of points to pay for the administrative building and this type of thing. I think we're in a danger. You're a public utility, so that means you don't pay taxes and you don't return dividends. So you should have a strong, and I realize there's other factors in this and it's complicated, but you should in large part over the long term have a competitive advantage and a comparative advantage to a private sector company. And yet the water rates are at parity now with the private sector, which is American Water, and the electric rates are getting closer to what the private sector charges. So I would just ask that you all, and I know you're doing it, but even do it more, to look even closer at costs. And I appreciate the cost controls bringing that in. I know David knows what he's doing. But I would look closer at labor costs and try to get them down. I would look closer at equipment costs and try to get them down. And whatever else, other kind of costs. I would call this other cost frills. And frills would be in quotes, because what might be a frill to me might not be a frill to you guys. For me, looking from the outside, the administrative building is kind of frilly. Now, whether that's the case or not, I don't know enough about it, to be perfectly blunt. But you all better look at things with a fine-tooth comb, because if your rates are the same or close to the same as the private sector, then you no longer have a reason to exist. Because the reason why we want you guys is it's cheaper and you can do more for the community. And if our prices are getting closer, and I think they are, you all know them better than I do, but if they're getting closer, then we start to get a little more nervous. At one time, we had one of the lowest electric costs in the country. And I know that a lot of factors have changed, and that's why that's changed. It's not necessarily things that maybe we've done, but I would just urge you all to really look at that as close as you can to try to make sure we can mitigate costs, because like for me as a business owner, I cannot pass through a 10% electricity rate increase to all the tenants that I have. It just can't be done. So I would urge you to try to figure out how to make your costs lower and even lower and even lower. And then the last thing I would say is, I do not know what entities that you all are using to try to promote energy conservation and to lower utility bills. I know we just heard a fellow just now. I would think that a real full court press, whether it be that organization or some other organization, to really get the community engaged in that so that they can lower their bills and mitigate these increases. And then the last thing, because you need to be concise, I understand that. The last thing is I'm really looking forward to what I hope are cost savings in electricity rates with the co-op that you all are going to have, because wholesale power costs are sort of at collapse the last year or two, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting that same cost. So I'm hoping that that's going to lower our costs to get us a competitive advantage. And last thing, remember, we have 5,000 manufacturing warehousing jobs here, and they're only really here for one reason. That's because electric power is cheap. If it's not cheap, they won't be here. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else?
My name is Jane Dahl, and I own the property at 104 Hay Avenue next to the water fields. I believe I spoke once before. And this is a problem that my daughter has made me aware of. She said that they have 4 children, and 3 of them sleep upstairs, young, under the age of 5, having a hard time getting them settled down. And she kept going, and she finally realized, now they have blinds on the window, the part that's facing the plank board. I mean blinds, I'm sorry, what did I say? Blinds on the windows that are closed. And she said she went upstairs and it was like daylight up there and the blinds were closed. And I looked out the back and I said, well, there's no lights back there over the fence. And she said, I don't know what it was, but it was extremely bright. Well, I was walking around Reservoir and I got toward the back there, and there's 2 great, huge, really tall, big, bright lights, street lights, I guess, but they're facing, right there into the upper bedroom. And I'm wondering what purpose that particular space serves, and if there's any way to focus them down or something so they don't shine right in the bedroom window, or just turn them off maybe, or anything just to get that nuisance taken care of. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't catch the address.
104 Hay Avenue in Tanglewood. No, it's Hay Avenue in Tanglewood. Yep. Right next to Lee and Harry Lee. Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody else? If not, we'll move on to information items, departmental reports. Due to the length of the agenda this evening, I'll ask the members if there's any departments they wish to ask about today.
Might give it a minute for the,
Yeah, they were there. They didn't talk.
I think Mr. Morella is I should recognize Josh Morella, but I guess I don't. Did you see him here? No, I mean Josh Morella.
I don't know.
Is Mr. Morella here? Sir. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Morella?
Would you like to go first?
You're up.
Please, I'm sorry. Generally, Charmester will give us a little update, a few comments about the admin building, progress and so forth. And she's not here this evening.
Absolutely.
I hope that you might be able to do that for us.
Absolutely. You guys hear me okay? So I think the last time I was here to talk to the board was maybe 5-6 months ago. I'm pleased to report that the progress on the administration building has really been tremendous. We are averaging somewhere between $1 million to $1.5 million of in-place construction every single month. And if you guys have been out to the site and seen just the sheer number of people on site and the progress of the work, that figure is reflective of that progress. We are still on track to turn the building over to you in early December of this year. Naturally, as all schedules go, we're constantly tweaking and making adjustments, but the turnover date that we provided you guys at the last time I was here, we're right on track to hit that. Some of the things I wanted to kind of give you guys updates on, and there's some information in your board packet. Specifically, pages 140 and 141 of your board packet have some great aerial photographs of the project. And if you guys want to flip to that, I can give you a few updates on some of the things that are really depicted in this photograph, or these aerial photographs, and actually work that's been completed since these are done. So picture 141 is a photograph of what we kind of call the upper face of the building and the upper parking lot. In this particular photograph, all the perimeter concrete curbs are in, and the stone base is down for the parking lots. Since this photograph has been taken, all the asphalt base has been placed. Now, this is just the asphalt base course. The surface course and all the finished pavement markings is one of the last things we do, because we don't want to damage that surface with our construction activities. Another thing that you can kind of see in these aerial photographs is we've been working to get all of our topsoil respread done on site, give the site its kind of final shape and finish. And we're in a position now where we could, in theory, start doing some of our fine grading and seeding and strawing and sodding. However, we're gonna wait till later in the year, obviously, to do that, because we don't, this time of year with the temperatures, we just don't feel like we're going to get a seeded or a sodded lawn to germinate very well. But all the work in preparation for that is nearly complete. Another thing that you can see in some of these aerial photographs is the construction of the roof being completed. And we're at a point now where all the roof is done. Now, there are certain elements like metal coping, some of the pieces that kind of finish out that roof that are yet to be completed. Naturally, that's one of the latter things that we would do. But the building at this point, from a roof standpoint, is 100% in the dry. So there's, the roof functions as it should. Some of the milestones that we hit in the last 30 days, and this is page 139 of your board packet. 100% of the precast concrete panels are now erected and complete. There's 185 panels total. Guys, they're beautiful. I mean, they turned out great. They're just, I could not be happier with our precast subcontractor, Gate Precast out of Winchester. They just did an incredible job. I mentioned previously that all the roofing is now done to kind of get us in the dry. We are pressing forward with interior framing. And I would say our interior framing, this is metal stud framing for interior walls, stud framing against the outside walls, is approximately 95% complete. The 5% that is not complete is areas where we need to maybe get some ductwork installed, or we're intentionally not framing some of the hard ceilings right now because there's still some overhead work to do. But the vast majority of the wall framing is done. Naturally, as you finish wall framing up, we're doing electrical rough-in within those walls. The electrical rough-in as a whole on the project is about 70% complete. All of the domestic water and plumbing rough-ins are complete, and I would say our HVAC rough-in is about 80% complete. We are hanging drywall on the ground floor of the building right now. We should start finishing drywall next week. And in a couple weeks, we'll start to put the primer coat and the first coat of paint on those walls. Finished paint will wait till later on, and we really need to get to the point where we're doing some ceiling, some of the interior ceiling grid and dropping light fixtures. That's necessary so you can kind of see any imperfections on the wall and kind of fix those before we obviously do a final coat of paint. The installation of all of our exterior punched windows is underway. I'd say we've got about 60% of the aluminum framed window framing installed. If you happen to drive by the project site out in the lower parking lot, you'll notice quite a few items that have blue tarps wrapped around them, and that's all of our glass, not all of it, but a lot of the glass for those punched openings. We get another shipment of glass the week of 4th of July. And we also have our fire rated glass on site, which is a long lead time item that we already have here. We've been working hand in hand with the window and glazing contractor. As you can imagine, there's some window openings where we've gone ahead and built some temporary enclosures over those windows so that as we do drywall certain areas of the building, we make sure that drywall stays protected from the moisture. But as you know, naturally, as the finished window goes in, that in and of itself will take care of drying in the building as a whole. The punch window openings will continue to finish out, and then once the punch window openings are done, then they'll start working on the curtain wall system at the front kind of curvature part of the building and around some of the stairwells. Fire protection is complete on the ground floor and the first floor. It's not yet started on the second floor. Generally how the progress works is we kind of do ductwork installation and framing once, on a floor. Once that's done, our electrician falls in and our fire protection contractor falls in behind that. It's much easier to work electrical conduit and fire protection piping around ductwork than the other way around. And there's some pretty substantial ductwork systems on that project if you guys have had the chance to walk through it. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I've been very happy with the progress that we're making. I'd also like to take a moment to commend Sharmista Dutta and GRW. Those guys, Sharmista has been absolutely fantastic to work for. She is a phenomenal ambassador for the Frankfort Plant Board. She just, I can't say enough good things about her. But those two, Sharmista and GRW, have also worked really diligently to save money. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but collectively, through a series of value engineering options and design modifications, we've actually saved almost $115,000 thus far on the project, below what the design and the contract originally was. There's a couple change order requests that are in the works right now that will provide further cost reductions. And I think that really needs to be commended. We do a lot of public work and we do a lot of work for public entities, and a lot of times the change orders go the other way, where they're constantly adding stuff and upgrading stuff. But Sharmista and GRW have really looked for ways to trim everything that they can be trimmed and to save the plant board money. And I want to just commend them for that.
Thank you, sir.
Do you guys have any questions of me at the moment?
The entrance, the roof has been put on the entrance, the round part of the building?
Yes.
It has a roof on it?
Yes.
It has a roof on it now?
Yes. Now, are you talking about the
entrance part?
The front part?
Right.
Yeah, it's got the roof up on top of it, and then the back part where the terrace is at.
Right.
It's got the roof on that. But now the rear terrace roof gets a concrete paver that goes on top of that we will intentionally wait till the latter portions of the project to do that paver system on top of that roof.
I'm out there about twice a week.
Okay.
And it really looks good.
Yeah.
I mean, you all are really making progress.
And anytime you guys want to stop in our trailer, David Hastings and Chris Pointer are two people on site. They'd be happy to give you a tour through the building. It's really coming along nicely.
Looks nice.
I'm not sure if you're the correct person to ask, but has Frank Sheldon been paid?
That's the subject of a litigation that I just prefer not to comment on at this meeting.
But we are using some of the work he constructed. It is part of the building still.
That is correct.
Okay.
Did we have to rework any of that?
Yes.
Do we have some sense of what the impact of the schedule or the budget was for the rework?
Again, part of an ongoing litigation. We have provided documentation as part of Frank Shelton Construction's discovery request that document the various delays that he has caused, or that company caused. We've provided a lot of documentation, and a lot of the documentation is via architect reports and via reports from third-party inspectors as to what the defective work is, and the remedial work that they require to be done. And then we've provided the cost documentation and the support documentation for what it cost Marilla to remediate and correct those deficiencies.
Can you share that documentation with the board?
Pardon?
Could you share that documentation with the board?
We can.
Do we? Okay. Who circulates that to the rest of us?
On request, we can.
So Herbie, you can get us a copy of that?
I assume the lawyers have a copy.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you all so much for having me today.
Thank you.
Okay. If the members have any questions in departments, for the departmental people, this is the time. Otherwise, we'll move on to next item, which is number 11, which is an action item. Okay, now we've got a bunch of contracts tonight and so forth. Number 11 is an action item. Consider award of bid invitation number 1622 for 3 pad-mounted transformers to Brownstown Electric Supply in the amount of $20,085, and 1 pad-mounted transformer to Wesco Distribution in the amount of $15,960.
Good evening, my name is Leanne Phillips. I'm the purchasing agent for Plant Board. Staff prepared a bid invitation for 4 pad-mounted transformers. The invitation was sent to 9 vendors with 8 responses received. After reviewing all the bids, staff recommends awarding to Brownstown Electric Supply Company and Wesco Distribution, as they are the lowest bids meeting specifications. Language in this bid allows for the bid to be divided. The recommendations are: item number 1 to Brownstown, for $20,085, and item number 2 to Wesco for $15,960. And these transformers will be used to replenish depleting inventory levels.
I'd like to make a motion then that we consider the bid invitation 1622 for three pad mounted transformers, Brownstown Electric Company, the amount of $20,085, and one pad mounted transformers to Wesco Distribution for an amount of $15,960.
Second.
The motion is to approve it, is that right? Is that correct? You said you're moving to consider it. I mean, you're moving to approve it, all right? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Okay. Motion carries. Number 12 is an action item. Consider renewing agreement with G&K Services for the rental of field uniforms with no price increase.
G&K Services holds the contract for Frankfort Plant Board's rental field uniforms, the rugs and mats, the cleaning towels, and the mop heads. G&K has offered the plant board a contract renewal with no price increase, even though the contract allows an increase at each renewal. The contract is for a period of 2 years. G&K has provided these services for several years with satisfactory service. Staff recommends accepting the renewal. Rental services have cost $63,908 as of June 1st. Each department includes this expense in their own budget.
I move we approve action item number 12, the renewal agreement with G&K Services for the rental of field uniforms at no price increase.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Agenda item number 13 is an action item. Consider Asplundh Tree Expert Company's contract renewal offer for tree trimming services.
Asplundh Tree Expert Company has offered the plant board a contract renewal of last year's contract with a 1% price increase for labor and equipment. The contract allows an annual price adjustment. Tree trimming services were bid in 2012, with Asplundh being the lowest bidder. Plant board renewed the contract last year as the contract allows 5 renewals. FPB has utilized Asplundh services for many years with satisfactory service. Rebidding for the service would more than likely result in an increase greater than 1%. Funds for tree trimming are included in the proposed fiscal year budget. Electric, $545,000, and cable, $150,000. As of May 10th, the plant board has paid $608,340 for tree trimming. The total cost for the upcoming year depends on services performed.
I had a question about strategy on tree trimming. Is when a tree is trimmed, do they expect to return to it the next year or in 5 years, or?
I'll probably need some help with that.
It's my
Scott's on his way.
It's my understanding that they rotate every 3 years. In other words, they'll do one section, another section. So in a 3-year period, it has all been done.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's correct. We do a 3-year cycle.
Good.
And is that for electric and for cable? I guess there are 2 different trimmings that happen?
There's 2 different trimmings. Primarily, you got to think about when our tree trimmers are trimming our lines, they're going to also be trimming for the cable as well because they're on the same poles. I think the cables is more set up for like when they have their cable lines on other utility companies right away, like Bluegrass Energy or Kentucky Utilities. They have their own separate trim goals themselves.
Is that why there's such an asymmetric?
Yes.
A lot of the funds are distributed so asymmetrical.
Right. We absorb the largest part of the cost because we're doing our complete system ourselves, and then they're having just to pick up their system, which is on other people's or other right-of-way poles.
Have we always outsourced this? Do we ever do this in-house?
We've always outsourced it. So yes, that's a standard. Technically, I don't know of any utility company in the state of Kentucky that does in-house training or in-house trim training. Everything's usually contracted out just because of the cost. But like you see right there, $545,000, we couldn't touch that buying equipment and hiring tree trimmers. We couldn't. Plant board, that would be 3 times that much. So.
Do we provide any guidance to Asplundh about how the trees are cut, or do they follow any standards about how that happens?
They follow the National Arbor Standards, what they follow. And their guys are trained and certified to the degree to cut trees like they're supposed to be.
So it's all directional cutting and.
Yeah. So I mean, they're supposed to be doing it right. We do have an inspector who follows them around and makes sure he knows the standards as well. He makes sure that they are trimming like they're supposed to be trimming, so.
And they assume the liability too.
Yes, they assume all the liability, and so if they drop a tree on a house or a car, they tear up somebody's yard, it's all theirs to fix, it's not ours.
They also respond in cases of emergency when we've had bad weather, they respond to.
Yes, they are. For instance, if during let's say we know an ice storm's coming, we'll go ahead and have them stay the night before. That's a typical plan before it happens. And if something comes through in the middle of the night tonight, there's typically one tree crew that kind of stays in Frankfort, because most tree trimmer contractors don't live in Frankfort, they live outside. We do have one tree crew that actually, they stay up here at the day's end, because it's cheaper for them to stay there and they just drive back and forth. But we do have them come in the middle of the nights periodically if we have a really bad windstorm, so. And they do respond, so.
Mr. Is it Cunningham who's been our plant board man to
Yes.
work with them?
Yes,
But
Steve.
he's retiring, right?
Steve Cunningham is our tree supervisor, and he is retiring July the 29th.
So we're gonna need a replacement there.
So we're in the process of replacing or having his replacement. He's gonna ride with him around the next month and a half and get familiar with the little
Okay,
things.
Great.
Does Asplundh take care of the noticing as well, or is that something we take care of?
Yes, Asplundh is supposed to, we kind of dictate what areas they need to go trim in, and then they've got the advertisers. They usually go from door to door and they hang door hangers. And of course, our number's on there for any questions the customers have, concerns, they call us and we tell them what we're doing.
Do we get a lot of feedback from customers around tree trimming?
The only feedback we ever get is usually negative because people don't want you to trim their trees. So, I mean, positive, we do get some feedback, I mean, yes.
How do we respond to the customers? Do we suggest appropriate plantings, or how do we field those?
Yes, when we say a typical, if we got an area, we keep going back and back and back. If the customer will let us go ahead and clear cut, which means remove a tree instead of having to come back and trim it every 3 years. Some customers are very receptive to doing that. And then we don't necessarily have a tree-to-tree program, which we're kind of working on. We do sometimes if, well, they'll let us take a big tree down, it's pretty, we'll furnish another one that's suitable for
that location,
for utility, and they try to move them away. So it's an education process, and we do have tree pamphlets that we hand out when people ask what kind of trees can I plant, where should I plant them, and it has all the diagrams and information on those pamphlets to customers. And we do have those available, and I believe they're also on the website. I'm pretty sure they are on the website, so customer can click on that, and they are on the website also, they can see that, so. Thanks. Anything else?
I move for approval of action item number 13, which is consider, and I can't pronounce that name, Asplundh?
Asplundh, some people say Asplundh.
Well, the tree expert company's contract renewal for tree trimming services.
I'll second that. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Agenda item number 14 is an action item. Consider award of bid invitation number 1619, annual price contract for distribution transformers to Wesco Distribution.
Most of the plant board's distribution transformers are purchased from an annual price contract. These transformers are kept in the plant board's inventory and need to be replenished periodically. Orders for these transformers depend on new development and replacement of bad transformers. Vendors bid with the understanding that they are locking in unit pricing for the year and not for a certain quantity of transformers. This year's bid invitation was sent to 9 vendors with 5 responses. After evaluating all bids, staff recommends awarding to Wesco Distribution as they are the low bidder meeting specifications. The apparent low bidder, Cape Electric, did not provide firm pricing. FPB has purchased approximately $42,925 from the current contract. The proposed contract reflects a 1.7% increase in pricing.
I make a motion we consider the bid invitation 1619, annual price contract for distribution of transformers to Wesco Distribution.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Carries. Number 15 is an action item. Consider renewal of annual price contract for ductile iron pipe, ductile iron fittings, valves, and tapping sleeves to Ferguson Waterworks.
Ferguson Waterworks has offered Frankfort Plant Board a contract renewal of the current price contract for ductile iron pipe, ductile iron fittings, valves, and tapping sleeves with no price increase. This material was put out for bid in 2014, with Ferguson Waterworks being the low bidder. At that time, pipe prices were down 1.5%, fittings and valves were both down 30%, and due to a specification change, tapping sleeves were down 63%. Staff does not anticipate prices being lower if we were to rebid this year. As of May 2016, FPB has purchased approximately $42,000 from the current contract, and these materials are ordered on an as-needed basis for inventory levels.
I move that we renew the annual price contract for ductile iron pipe, ductile iron fittings, valves, tapping sleeves to Ferguson Waterworks.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Number 16, consider renewal of the annual price contract for hydrants to East Jordan Ironworks.
East Jordan Ironworks has offered Frankfort Plant Board a contract renewal of the current price contract for fire hydrants with no cost increase. Hydrants were put out for bid in 2014, with East Jordan being the low bidder. At that time, hydrant prices went up 6.5%. Staff does not anticipate prices being lower if we were to rebid this year. As of May 2016, the Plant Board has purchased approximately $23,300 in hydrants. Hydrants are also ordered on an as-needed basis for inventory levels.
I make a motion we consider renewal of the annual price contract for hydrants to East Jordan Iron Works.
Second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Number 17, consider award of bid invitation number 1618. This is the annual price contract for the purchase of wood poles to Thomasson Lumber.
Frankfort Plant Board's inventory of wood poles is purchased from an annual price contract. These poles are ordered as needed to maintain inventory levels. The bid is to obtain the best price and to hold pricing for the entire fiscal year. Staff estimates the quantity of poles on the annual bid. Vendors bid with the understanding that orders may exceed or fall short of estimated quantities. This year's bid invitation was sent to 9 vendors with 3 responses. Staff reviewed all bids and recommends awarding to Thomasson Lumber, as they are the lowest bid meeting specifications. As of May 10th, Frankfort Plant Board has purchased approximately $19,618 in wood poles in the current fiscal year. However, an additional order could be placed prior to the new fiscal year. The new pricing reflects a price increase of 4.2%.
I move for approval of action item number 17, bid invitation number 1618, the annual price contract for purchase of wood poles to Thomasson Lumber.
I second that, but I also have a question. How do we decide when we use wood versus metal versus other materials for poles?
Scott's coming back.
Oh, okay.
Probably $300 versus $17,000.
We had two kinds of poles we call distribution poles and transmission poles. All of our transmission poles, which are 70 foot or higher, we've kind of standardized on steel. They're actually, believe it or not, steel transmission poles are a little cheaper than wood poles because you have to grow over a taller tree and it's a little bit more expense. All our distribution poles are currently wood. We do have steel poles in inventory. If we have a place that it's really, really hard to get to a wood pole, when we go in there, we'll take a steel pole because we know we'll, hopefully, as far as the pole goes, we want to go back and do the pole again. Back in the early 2000s, we were actually trying to do more steel distribution poles, but when the price of steel went back up, it doubled the price in poles. When the price comes back down, it's something we still keep steel poles in inventory. We still use them, but not as much as wood. So,
clarification of what Scott said. Poles, when they get above 70 or 75 feet, they're up in that range. A steel pole is usually cheaper than a wood pole, but down on the distribution level, the wood poles are still cheaper.
As we look at adding more fiber to our poles, would that change, you know,
Fiberglass?
KentuckyWired type thing? Would that
Oh.
change space that we need on the pole or anything like that?
The thing about loadings on the poles, the steel poles are designed around the loading capabilities of wood poles. So you see a steel pole and you think, well, that can handle a lot more load than a wood pole, but it's really not the case. A steel pole is, I don't know exactly the thickness, but they're fairly thin. When you break them apart, they can at times be packed in fairly easy. In certain places they come apart, depending on the type of pole. So the amount of load they can handle is roughly the same as the same class wood pole that they replace, except you do have issues with wood poles sometimes when you can have quality issues. The poles all look the same, but obviously they're a natural grown product and they can have weak spots. Where a steel pole is much more uniform and you don't have those kind of issues, so that is an advantage to it. You also, you may have seen some places in town where a wood pole can get hit by a car, sometimes it'll snap off. If a car hits a steel pole, many times they'll crumple, but they will continue to stand, and it lets you kind of have a little more time to work on something that keeps some of this infrastructure from falling down.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, where are we?
I need to vote on 17.
Oh, okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, now we
Mr.
get into
Ludwig,
the.
I'm sorry, I have one more that's number 43. Would you like me to present
Oh, yeah,
that?
yes, Leanne.
Thank you.
That'd be fine. Yeah, water treatment chemicals? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a late addition.
Ready?
I have, I think Kathy sent that as a handout because she missed it when she was putting the, does anybody need a copy of the chemical?
Sure.
You're good.
I don't need it.
Thank you.
We can skip ahead and come back in 10 minutes if you want to do it that way. Give you a chance to look it up if you need to.
I did read it when
Yeah,
Kathy
I
sent
just
it out.
I didn't bring a copy with me.
It's pretty routine. They bid them out every year, and the prices fluctuate quite a bit, actually.
Well, I was curious why some of them decreased so much, like 23%.
I know.
Is that just market, or is that?
I guess really it's just the market. We do a reverse auction on these chemicals, and yeah, it's brought the prices down quite significantly. Is it okay to go ahead and present it?
I think so.
Okay. Staff prepares an annual bid for the chemicals used in water treatment. The bid includes estimated quantities and also explains that orders could exceed or fall short of the estimates. Vendors bid with the understanding that the bid's purpose is to hold unit pricing throughout the plant board's fiscal year. We received 20 responses. Staff reviewed each bid and recommends awarding to the low bidders meeting specifications, with the exception of the powder activated carbon, the polyaluminum chloride, and the sodium chloride. Okay, the first one is ferric chloride to PBS Technologies for $187 unit price. That's a 2.18% increase from last year. The liquid sodium hydroxide to Brentag for .102, which is a 6.86 decrease from last year. The powder activated carbon to Calgon Carbon for 72 cents. That's a 7.45% increase. The fluorosilicic acid to Univar USA for 18 cents. That's a 23.1% decrease. The anhydrous ammonia to Airgas Specialty Products for 92 cents. That's the same price as last year. Potassium to Chemrite for $1.649. That's a 3.57% decrease from last year. Sulfuric acid to Chemical Resources for 8 cents. That's a 20% decrease from last bid. Zinc orthophosphate to Shannon Chemical for .473, and that is 7.25% decrease. And sodium chloride to Morton Salt for $214.68. That's a 7.34% increase from the last bid. The water softener salt to chemical resources for .179. That's a 15.48% increase from last bid. The polyaluminum chloride to USALCO for 0.119 cents, and that's a 35.3% decrease from last bid. As of June 10th of 2016, the chemical purchases are approximately $358,000 for the year with 1 month remaining. Staff has requested $400,000 in the proposed budget for chemical purchases.
I move for approval of action item number 43. Consider the bid invitation 1620, the annual price contract for water treatment chemicals.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion carries. Thank you, Leanne. Now we go to the, this painful part, or at least what we do. That is water rate increase, subsequent tariff changes. We've had the cost of service studies, and we've had the hearings and so forth. And now we're down to where we have to act or not act on these rate increases.
If the board will recall, the recent cost of service study indicated that our revenue streams continue to fall short of our revenue requirements. In addition, reserve levels together with ongoing and future projects indicate that additional revenue increases will be required. In an effort to minimize larger future rate increases, staff actually recommended smaller incremental rate increases in the near future. As a matter of course, the board approved the notice of a public hearing on May 12th, and a public hearing was conducted on May 24th, 2015. No specific oral or written comments were received related to the water rates, other than what we received again tonight. About the rates in general, staff recommends that the board approve the proposed water rate increase and subsequent tariff changes effective July 1st, 2016, or as soon thereafter as the material may be presented to the City Commission pursuant to House Bill 1.
Just to make a quick note, there to make a correction. It said the public hearing was conducted on May 24, 2015. That was May 24, 2016.
Thank you.
Correct that for the record.
Well, water is still a heck of a bargain. It really is. It just really is. Most essential utility of all, and we are definitely competitive. We are.
Along that lines, David, there was some commentary made in the public comment period that talked about our comparison versus, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you have those,
That's fine.
those numbers that you could repeat back just so we have.
I thought it might
There
come
we
up. Here's what I'd like people to remember about our rates. Existing rates, along with the increases that we're talking about, this rate increase, for about $1 a day, all in. That's what we're putting 4,000 gallons a month into people's homes. So it's about $1 a day. Specifically with the rate increase to our city customers, it's $27.40 a month. That would be the new rate that's proposed. And it's $33.56 a month to the county customers. So it's about $1 a day.
Could you give us some sense of how that compares to the privately owned utilities, Kentucky American and such?
Kentucky American currently is at $33.69 for 4,000 gallons. And they have asked for a rate increase. They have proposed one. Typically, I can't speak for the Public Service Commission, but typically, or generally speaking, they get about half of what they asked for. By my math, that would put them at almost $37 a month for 4,000 gallons. And what we're talking about is $27 a month and $33.56 a month. Right? So there's some significant advantages to our rates.
And the person from public comment who said $1 a day, that is what we're paying now, or in that it's not an increase to $1 a day. It's what we are.
Perhaps I spoke wrongly or wasn't clear enough about it, but let me clarify now. With the increase, that would put us to about $1 a day. The increase itself is not $1 a day.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, do we have a motion?
Well, since everybody's so bashful, I move that we approve the proposed water rate increase and subsequent tariff changes.
Second.
Any discussion? It's the biggest bargain out there, folks. It's, okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, motion carries. Agenda item number 19 is consider approving proposed retail electric rate increase to be effective July 1, 2016.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Board.
Okay.
For the benefit of the cameras and a little bit for people that may be seeing it, I'll read just a little bit of the statement to kind of give it a little background. But starting in 2009, Kentucky Utilities, with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's approval, they instituted their annual formulated rate mechanism. This allows KU to change the wholesale electric rate charge to the plant board based on KU's actual charges incurred. FPB is notified of the new rate every May with an effective date of their new increase of July 1 of that same year. This year, KU has notified the municipal customers of an estimated 10.82% wholesale rate increase. Now that translates down to our customers to about a 9% retail increase. And again, that will be effective for all energy used on July 1, 2016. That's what KU is passing to us. Due to the annual rate changes from KU and in keeping with good utility practice, the plant board conducts periodic cost of service and cost allocation reviews. We do these reviews to ensure that our retail rates generate adequate revenue based on the consideration of our wholesale power costs, our operating expenses, as well as adequate working capital and reserves. While the plant board has been financially required to pass on numerous annual rate increases from its supplier, it has not requested any rate increases for its own operations since 2009. However, based on our current expenses and the proposed budget, the plant board will need an additional 2.4% in revenue beyond KU's increase. So the two combined will equal an 11.4% retail increase, which will translate differently to our various customer classes based on our most recent cost of service study and how that needs to be allocated. The board approved the notice of a public hearing on May 12th of 2016, and we conducted a public hearing on May 24th, 2016. During that public hearing, there were no oral or written comments, but we did have one statement opposed to the rate increases that the plant board received on its website. And then we heard some this evening as well. Staff recommends that the board approve the proposed electric rate increase effective for July 1, 2016, or as soon thereafter as the material may be presented to the City Commission pursuant to House Bill 1. I'll be happy to answer any specific questions you have about the rate increase.
Could you provide some of the same background that David did as far as how we compare it?
Yes, sir. Okay, to give you an idea, I'll give you two municipals in the state and then go into the private. Bowling Green Municipal, again, I'm talking about residential customers, for instance, here. When you take their charges all in, with everything in, they are 12.48% more expensive than the Frankfort Plant Board. That was Bowling Green. Owensboro Municipal is 48.83% more expensive than the Frankfort Plant Board. Owen Electric, an RECC, is 26.7% more expensive. Shelby Energy is 20.63%. KU is 23.97% more expensive. And Bluegrass Energy is 23.58%. Now that was a slice for an average residential customer using 1,200 kilowatt hours a month. So that kind of gives you an idea. Again, now each one's broken a little differently. Some utilities like KU has an environmental surcharge, and they have some different charges. Sometimes people can go to the PSC and look at some of the rates, and if you compare them just what's in the PSC filing, it doesn't tell the whole story sometimes. Sometimes the rate may look a little cheaper, but when you have all the mandatory riders and things that are on most of the bills, what I gave you is what the bottom line comes back to a homeowner. Now, that does not include taxes that everyone would be involved in. So that gives you an idea of our comparison. So we're still in pretty good standing compared to the competition in the area, but there have been significant changes. I think one of the things that I think Mr. Roach commented on briefly is the idea of KYMEA and trying to look for ways with the wholesale suppliers that we can provide not only cheaper rates, but a bigger voice for our community and their future power supply.
Thanks. Were you able to find any utilities that actually provided a lower cost product than we did?
No, not in the ones that we went looking for all the utilities that were around us. Sometimes you'll find a city that shows a little bit lower, and then when you look into it, they'll have a really high fuel adjustment rate that brings them back up. Again, it's kind of that thing where some things on the surface look cheaper. I believe, I don't know the utility's name, I believe there's one in Western Kentucky that is cheaper that we've run into, but they're significantly cheaper, and we know some of their suppliers and what they're charging them, and I don't know if there's some subsidies or what's going on there, so I couldn't comment on the accuracy of that rate, but those are happening. Excellent.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed retail rate, electric rate increases to be effective July 1, 2016. I'd like to make some comments on that too.
Let's ask for a second.
I'm sorry.
On the motion.
Second.
We have had the cheapest electric rates for many years, and like was mentioned in this presentation, we have not had an increase since 2009 to the Frankfort Plant Board. Now, obviously, there has been an increase almost annually as it passed through from KU, which there's not much we can do about that. But from this, though, amount of money that we take in each month, 82 cents of every dollar goes to KU. So for 18 cents, we buy the poles, the transformers, the wire, the salaries, the benefits, the vehicles, and I think it's just absolutely amazing what we do with 18 cents in our electric division. Thank you.
Any more commentary on the motion and second? Okay, if not, we'll call for the action item. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Hearing no no's, the motion carries. Thank you, Vance. Number 20 is an action item. Consider approval of bid invitation 1623, contract labor for cable installation to custom cable services for up to $300,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends the award of bid invitation 1623 for contract cable installations to custom cable services. These services are needed to help the staff with the installation of cable TV, telephone, and broadband products. The invitation was publicly issued on May 2nd and advertised and sent to 3 potential bidders. Bids were received and opened on May 16th. May 16th, that's correct. Custom Cable Services being the only company submitting a bid. Custom Cable has successfully provided these services to FPB for many years, and they meet all of the requirements in the bid specifications. Staff has budgeted $300,000 for these services in fiscal year 17 and expects to utilize all of the available funds in the assistance in the installation of the cable telecom services. Dana Goodluck works every single day with these contractors, and so if you had specific questions with that, I'm going to ask for Dana's help, since he talks to them every single day and help put together the bid invitation with Leanne.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that only one company bid?
No, not really. Over the course of I think this is the 6th bid that we've done. We use so few contractors. They're used to working for the Time Warners of the world, where they have hundreds of contractors. We only use somewhere between 2 or 3, depending on what time of the year it is, to be honest with you. And we're just not big enough to attract more bidders. We sent 3 out. We had one that we never heard from, and then we had one that actually that submitted paperwork as a no bid and came to the bid opening. So we're hopeful that they were taking notes, and maybe they'll take advantage of the bid invitation the next time we do it.
I just wonder or worried that our request was so narrow that maybe only one company could have fit what we asked for, but.
No, I think the way the bid is put together, we have to be specific in the services that we need. I think there are, give me just a second. If you'll look at starting on page 167, and then continuing on page 168 of your board package, these are all of the different types of installs that can happen. So you could see there's more than 20 types of installs that could happen that we could use. And it's from this menu, from a lack of a better way of saying that we ask really the bidder to respond to. This bid doesn't look any different than really any other cable company would be asking for the exact same thing. This is how these types of bids are constructed, mostly because it's very detailed in the amount of effort, time, and work and material that is put into each install. And so the potential bidder can know exactly what that particular item is, and they'll know ahead of time how much. It's really time more than anything. We're supplying the majority of, actually all of the material. So it comes down to time frame, and it takes longer to install 3 products than it does 1.
Okay, thank you.
How many staff does the contractor have?
We typically use 2 or 3, depending on the time of the year. Sometimes they're busier than others, and Dana works with the supervisor. I guess it's probably month to month, but I'll tell you what, he really does this every day, and I do not. So I'm going to let him speak specifically about it.
Yeah, once a month we have their supervisor. He comes down, visits. He travels all over the place. They do contract work all over South. They're got a big job in St. Louis right now. So we get with him about once a month, see if there's any problems. They've been with us now 4 years solid. We get a lot of compliments from the 2 guys that work here on what a good job they do. We like to hear that. And even before that, several years back, they did some jobs off and on for us, and we've always had good results from Custom Cable. They stand behind their work. If there's any problems, they take care of it, no excuses.
So if I heard that right, they don't have a revolving crew of folks that we're getting different resources out of. We just have 2 resources that are just adjunct workforce for all year.
Right. They've been, the same 2 guys have been here the last 4 years.
And so we consume them full time? Or do they have other responsibilities with other contracts?
Right now, they're pretty much just dedicated to us. Unless we get really slow or something, then they would utilize them somewhere else. But
so have we ever done this in-house? Have we ever done this work with on-staff resources?
Yeah, I'd say probably 5 or 6 years ago, we had some folks leave the department, just quit, no longer wanted to work for the Frankfort Plant Board. And the board at that time, we were very concerned, and our board was concerned of comments that were coming from the public, that our time to either do an install or work a trouble call was out 5, 6, 7 days. We were just, frankly, had too much work to do and not enough people to get it done. And so one of the ways that we could cut down on that lag time and customer complaints because of the slowness at which that we got there to do the work, in addition to trying to cut back on the amount of overtime, we worked, I think it's fair to say that we worked multiple people every Saturday for a period of 6 or 7 years. And we got to the point where we were just overworking our employees. And so the decision was made then that we could outsource some, but not all of our installation. And they have done that over the course of the last, I'm thinking this is 5 years and not 4, but I don't want to argue about 1 year here. But In addition to that, as we started through this project, we've had 2 other employees leave. So 3 altogether over the course of the last 6 years, and we haven't replaced them. We've gone down this road instead to do, I'd have to ask you what you think the percentage of installs done by these folks versus our own, because our guys are still doing some of the installs as well. There's some things we would prefer to do ourselves, but the majority of the trouble, actually almost all the trouble call is done by the Frankfort Plant Board employee. So these guys are really doing, I wouldn't say more of the easy stuff, the things that are quickly and in routine every single day, from a connect or installing cable TV or helping a customer with a set top, but more of the those are really the reasons why we went down this road, was to really save money in a way. And we haven't replaced, I believe it's 3 employees over the past 6 years that we've just gone down the route of contracting it out.
I mean, it seems like we're paying $250,000 for 2 resources.
It is a lot of money. I agree.
So it seems like that would be more cost savings to have 2 internal resources doing that.
But I couldn't use those resources in the way that these resources are used for at least 2 years, because it takes that long to train up the resources like that to really make them self-sufficient.
So then we're going to have some kind of a plan to start onboarding those skill sets and that head count.
I would be curious to see whether the board is going to ask us to really go in a different direction by adding employees. I have a plan for that. I plan for this, to continue to use contract labor.
But it seems like we're spending, like I said, $250,000 for 2 bodies.
That are producing quite a bit of work, yep.
Right, but it seems like 2 resources could be had for a lot less than $250,000.
They probably could be with, even with benefits and that type of thing, but again, it's going to take me a few years to get those resources available to use. I'm open to having a discussion with the board, but we really haven't made any provisions to add staff in this area other than the contract labor that we have in front of you today.
Well, I would like to see a plan to start bringing those jobs in-house with in-house resources and local employees before we move forward reapproving the contract or awarding the bid.
Is this a hard number, or is this kind of a not to exceed number?
Well, I wrote the item up after it was asked to be changed last year, so this is how you asked for it up to. This year, I think we've spent through May. I think I had billing through May of about 239, 242,000, something like that. So it's an up to amount. It's not exactly going to be 300,000 every single year. Yeah, that's what it is. That's how I provided it to you today, not to exceed that amount.
How close do we come to that number most years?
We're typically under. Yeah.
5%, 10%, 50%?
Usually in probably the $30,000 to $40,000 range. Yeah, not always, but this is the same number we've used for a few years now.
So we're still paying, even if that under, we're still at the $230,000 kind of range for 2 employees.
2 and 3, yep. Sometimes we have 3. I really don't, I have no argument with what you're saying. But what you're asking me to do is make a decision to provide something for you today that I really can't utilize for 2 years. The here and now is here and now.
Well, actually, all I'm asking for is a plan to move in that direction before we continue on this.
That would be a significant change in what the board has directed us to do in the last 5 or 6 years. I'm happy to entertain that.
Are there people that you can actually hire that come out of vocational school or something that have the skills you need, rather than training?
I would say that's true, but I haven't hired anybody in 5 or 6 years.
Oh, okay.
Do we use similar services for electrical or water?
I'm sorry, I can't.
Do we use similar contract services for electrical or water?
No, sir.
Electric and water services don't provide service inside a home.
Right.
I'd be inclined to renew this time around, but then continue to maybe look at alternative in the future, John.
Sure.
A little bit, but I think we're at a point where we need to do this for the reasons you stated. I'll move that we award bid invitation 1623 contract labor for cable installation to Custom Cable Services for up to $300,000.
Second.
Discussion.
Well, with moving that, don't we want to also add in there to look into moving this in-house?
Yeah, I asked him to do that, and he said that he would start to explore that a little bit, try to develop something on that. But it's going to take time, as he just explained. It's going to take time just to even come up with some study on it.
Can we amend the motion to include that?
I don't want to amend the motion. He said he would do it, and
Okay.
that's good enough for me. Let's call this by member. If someone who can call the roll for us, the vote yes is to go ahead and grant this contract this time around. Vote no would be to not do it.
Member Probrotsky,
Yes.
Member Baldwin,
No.
Member Rosen,
No.
Member Ludwig,
Yes.
Member Green.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, next item is number 21. Approve FPB COT dark fiber redundant ring service agreements.
Before I go to that item, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the expectation. So the board is asking that staff do a study on what it would take for the hiring of additional employees, the benefits, any equipment or vehicles needed to provide those services, and any other type of requirements needed to hire these individuals in-house, and then bring that information to the board over the course of the next budget period, next spring, or is that what you're asking for? And then,
It's the old problem of whether something makes more sense to do something in-house or to contract it out. So it's a matter of just trying to come up with an idea of
okay,
whether we need to change our direction on this. And this won't be up again for a year, I guess. And so we've got some time for you. I know that you have lots and lots to do.
I will have that information available when the next
Just need
budget
to get
go-around comes around.
Some idea of
Yes, sir.
comparative cost.
No problem.
John.
No problem. Number 21, staff recommends the board approve the renewal of this dark fiber redundant ring agreement between the plant board and the Commonwealth Office of Technology. The ring was constructed in fiscal year '08, and this agreement represents the first renewal. Renewal is necessary to continue to meet COT's request for an inter-office fiber ring and redundant primary and secondary routes here in the county. The term of the agreement is retroactive to April 27, 2016, and extends 60 months. COT executed the agreement on that date. I had planned to be at the May 17th board meeting, but I was not in town, and so I held this for another month, so I apologize for that. I just wasn't here to bring the item to you. The Assistant GM Administration assisted in drafting this agreement, and it meets with his approval. Again, the agreement was executed by COT on April 27th. Just to be honest with you, it really hasn't changed in any way, shape, or form from the first agreement that the board approved in 2008, with one exception. This includes a new building, the state office building behind the plant board's admin building on Sauer Boulevard. We had a timetable provided to us by the folks at COT back in the winter that they needed to have the service activated in that building by June 1st. And in good faith, we met their deadlines, and we have added that to this agreement, but we have not billed them for that as yet. But the service has been up and running for 3 weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks anyway. So that's the additional information I wanted to add on that for you.
I move that we approve the FPB COT dark fiber redundant ring service agreement.
I second that.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, can I add, I'm not going to have an opportunity to get back up here today, and I wanted to respond to something, just additional information. I'm sorry, I can't remember the gentleman's name, Mr. Moore from KentuckyWired,
Yes.
spoke a little bit about a couple of different things going on in Franklin County. The board approved an attachment agreement with two subcontractors whose names escape me at this moment on the KentuckyWired project in September 2015 with the electric department. If you'll go back and look at, or Kathy could probably send it to you later, your September 2015, I recognize that two board members weren't on the board at that time. For the pole attachment for the FPB electric. Over the course of the last several months, Vince's staff has supplied one employee, and the cable engineering has supplied an employee, and they just work a few hours a week on it to do pole attachment counts, just double checking exactly where all of FPB electric and all FPB cable to telecom is on the poles that the plant board owns. They've been doing this project for a few months. They've got a long way to go. What Mr. Moore didn't say, maybe just didn't have time to say it today, they have to essentially do the exact same thing at AT&T and Kentucky Utilities and Bluegrass Energy in this county. I can only speak to where they are with FPB. They've got quite a long way to go. They've made quite a bit of progress, but they're still going to have quite a bit of time before they even have the make ready or the look at what's on those poles at this time. There's quite a bit of work to do on make ready down the road. To make space for any KentuckyWired fiber that goes on that pole. Mr. Moore's timetable of, I took a note that he said sometime in 2017. I don't know what your all's notes say, but that's what I heard him say.
The math came out to January, I think, 2017.
Well, he said 8 months from now.
8 months
Right.
from May, yeah.
The initial calendar that I saw on the KentuckyWired website a few months back had a timetable in Frankfort of May or June of 2016. So that's come and gone a little bit. But there is still a tremendous amount of work to be done just to get the poles ready here in town. Frankfort Plant Board Electric does have a pole attachment agreement with the subcontractors on that project, though. Just wanted to, you can refer the information when you have an opportunity.
Thank you, John. You're welcome. Okay, we have a request for a public hearing regarding a change to our electric net metering tariff. Let's see, who do we have? Okay, sorry, Vince.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and the board. The existing plant board electric net metering tariff allows the board to purchase energy from approved facilities, and usually those facilities are solar systems, at the retail rate and that it sells energy to its customers, adjusted by its power cost adjustment. An approved facility for the net metering tariff is currently classified as a customer generator who owns and operates a generating facility located on the customer's premise that generates electricity using solar, wind, biomass, biogas, or hydro energy in parallel with the plant board's distribution system for the customer to provide all or part of their electrical requirements. Again, the current policy only allows facilities which are owned by the customer, and it doesn't make any provision for a leased generating facility. That's a fairly popular way to do it now, and it's much easier for a customer if it is done that way in many cases. The proposed change that we want to look into and have the public hearing for would make provisions for lease generating facilities located on the customer's premises that are generating the electricity, again, for their own electrical needs and their own system. The tariff change language is on page 179 through 187 in your packet. It's extremely minor. Again, it just makes that provision so you could use a lease system. We will have copies available of the tariff changes for any customers that would want to see that at our downtown office at 317 West 2nd, or we'll have it out at our service center, 305 Hickory Drive, and of course it'll be available on our website for download. The staff recommends that the board approve a public notice for the purpose of conducting a public hearing related to the change at the next regular meeting of the Frankfort Plant Board on the 19th of July 2016 at 5 p.m. Farmers Bank, 4th floor community room. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have or go through anything else you need me to on this item.
I move that we set a public hearing regarding the change to electric net metering tariff for our July meeting at 5 o'clock.
Second.
The motion second.
Second, yeah.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we move to the next item, I would recommend a short recess.
Okay. We'll do that. We'll recess for 5 or 10 minutes and then resume.
Thank you.
See, agenda item number 23 is an action item. Consider approving a request for a public hearing regarding change to water tariff for mobile home parks. David?
Current tariff, section 4.4, requires that mobile homes to be master metered. Subsequent to the owner's request and the installation of new water mains at the trailer park, staff felt it was necessary to change the tariff. The specific language is on page 190 of the board packet. Specifically, it gives discretion to the plant board on whether mobile home parks will either be master metered or individually metered. We're requesting a public hearing to be set for this tariff change.
Okay, discussion or motion or?
I'm a little confused. Could you describe what we're talking about here? I understand a master meter, but then are we also going to have individual meters at each mobile home, or?
Are we talking about the project that we're working on now?
Yeah.
Okay. The project that we're working on now actually completed it. It had 1 meter.
Okay.
And past that meter was the owner's service lines that ran all the way throughout the park. Now, what he requested was that we install plant board owned, operated, and maintained water mains into the development and install individual meters like you would see in a subdivision.
Okay.
So previous to this, our tariff required that mobile home parks should be master metered with the 1 meter. So
When the project on Home Street is completed, we'll take out the master meter and we will individually meter the mobile homes.
Okay.
think of it that we are replacing his service lines with our water main.
I understand.
Yeah.
On
We
those,
have one other, there's a couple other mobile home parks in Frankfort. But a mobile home park on US 60 out there, in behind Scotty Dunn's repair shop, though that mobile home park is individually metered. And I think the difference there was when that project was developed, those mobile home owners actually owned the lot itself that the mobile home sat on. And so we constructed lines within that development and individually metered each lot like we would a subdivision. So I think that's the difference in the two developments. But this way, when we amend this tariff, it will allow us to meter trailer or mobile home parks either way.
Are we going to be running lines from to the houses to each of the mobile homes? We're running those lines too?
We'll install the meter, and then the individual will have to hire a plumber and
To run the lines.
connect back into the meter.
I think the Plumbers Association years back lobbied Capitol Hill and got some legislation or rulemaking out. There was some concern that the plant board and other municipalities were encroaching into their job market. And so these provisions where it requires a licensed plumber to hook the home up to the meter came about. So utility companies go to the meter, and then there's a code or restrictions that require a licensed plumber to hook the house up to the meter. So
And I-
no, the plant board will not be constructing that section from the meter into the mobile home. We don't have licensed plumbers.
And our ownership.
Our operators are distribution certified operators.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Harvey, but one particular point we need to make here is our ownership ends at the meter in every situation. So that's the reason that we wouldn't want to do that construction, in addition to the fact that it requires a licensed plumber.
So on Home Street, we haven't put the meters in, but we've completed all the work?
The water line is in, and some of the individual tenants have signed up for service, but it's my understanding not all of them have yet.
Okay.
And we'll be installing the meters on as they come in and sign up for service shortly thereafter.
Alan Smith is here. Bill Briscoe here. Bill, have you installed any of the meters in that mobile home park yet?
No meters have been installed.
How many have signed up for the meter?
As of today, 18 of 25 residents have signed for service.
Did you say 18?
18 between staff.
When do we think those will be installed and the service will be running?
We're done on our end. It's up to the owner to hire a plumber to do the rest of the work.
If you would, come to the microphone. I understood you to say we've had 18 residents sign up for the meter, but I'm a little confused. Have we installed those 18 meters or not?
The 18 meters are not installed. The vault is in place, but as they sign for service and as a plumber comes to hook it up, we'll work in conjunction with that plumber and install the meter at that time and assign it to that trailer.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Glad to hear you moving right along too. So the proposed amendment to our tariffs is that in the future, instead of it being just one way, that plant board will be able to make a determination whether it's going to be just a master meter or it could be either way depending on what the plant board feels is the best way to go about it. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Some landlords like to have a master meter and include it in the rent. Some landlords want to individually meter and have the water usage fall on the individual responsibility of it. So this will give us the discretion, and also because we have different mobile home parks both ways, we need to continue forward with that discretion.
To me, it's common sense. It's a good thing, I think. It's more democratic, I guess. Okay.
In that case, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request for having a public hearing regarding change to the water tariff for mobile home parks at our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
I'm sorry. That's right, on the 19th of July.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay. All right, so we had two public hearings and both of them I think will go well. Okay. Number 24 is an action item. Consider approving amendment to the Rovi agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Staff recommends the board approve the amendment to the Rovi agreement for interactive guide services. This amendment extends the term of our current direct agreement 3 years until July 31st, 2019. Rovi provides the software that runs on all of our existing advanced set-top boxes. It provides the program guide data as well as the functionality of DVR, video on demand, and other features. There is no rate reset on this agreement. It just continues the annual increases from our current agreement, which is 3% or CPI, whichever is greater. The agreement contains an NCTC opt-in clause if one is reached in the future, and the Assistant General Manager for Administration has reviewed this agreement, and it meets with his approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this amendment to our existing Rovi agreement.
What's the total dollar for the Rovi agreement?
The total dollar? Well, it's assigned per household. The actual dollars is probably going to be part of a non-NDA as far as public dissemination goes. To give you some sense, every household pays a $2.50 gateway fee, and this fee, as well as two items from now, make up a majority of that fee. So that's a $2.50 a month per household. This makes up a portion of that.
Ready for a motion? I move that we approve amendment to the Rovi agreement.
Second. Discussion. If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, motion carries. Agenda item number 25 is an action item. Consider approving Hulu offering distribution agreement.
Thank you. Staff recommends approval of the Hulu offering distribution agreement. This is an NCTC agreement with a term through September 28th, 2018. There are two parts of this agreement. The first part will allow FPB to offer Hulu Plus to Hulu Plus customers on our TiVo set-tops upon launch of that product later this year, which we think will help make that product a stickier product. And secondly, it will allow FPB to offer, sort of be not a vendor, but to offer the Hulu Plus product to our broadband-only subscribers on an a la carte basis, and we would receive financial considerations from Hulu for those customers that we've signed up through our. We'll have a custom URL that we'll send our customers to, and if they sign up for Hulu and maintain the service, we'll get a small bounty, so to speak, for those customers. Really, staff feels the first part is the most important part, the bringing that service to that TiVo box. The second part is just another part, and we hope that it'll generate some revenue, but it's just part of the agreement as it comes from the NCTC. There's no expense to FPB to entering this agreement. It just allows us to bring the service to the customers that are already customers, and it allows us to generate some revenue for folks that haven't signed up for the service. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about this agreement.
I move we approve the Hulu offering distribution agreement.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Number 26 is consider approval of amendment with Vubiquity. Manufactured word there, Vubiquity.
Staff recommends approval of an amendment with Vubiquity. In July or June of 2011, FPB entered into an agreement with a company called Avail TVN for delivery of video on demand content. In 2013, Avail TVN became Vubiquity. They deliver all of the transactional video on demand content that FPB offers and a large portion of the free on demand content. This amendment extends our agreement for an additional 3 years. The Assistant GM for Administration has reviewed the amendment and it meets with his approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this amendment.
Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the amendment with Vubiquity, however you say that.
I'll second the motion. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, motion carries. Number 27 is an action item. Consider approving statement of work from Renegade Communications in the amount of $17,500.
Thank you. Staff recommends the approval of the statement of work from Renegade Communications in the amount of $17,500. Renegade came to Frankfort last year and provided 4 days of training for FPB's customer service representatives and supervisors in order to give them tools they can better use to answer customer questions regarding FPB's cable telecom services. Staff is proposing for Renegade to return to Frankfort this year, provide a 1-day skills refresher for the tools and techniques that were learned last year. Additionally, they would provide 4 additional on-site quarterly coaching visits to work on a one-on-one basis with customer service representatives. Speaking with the customer service department, they felt that last year's training was beneficial. This training will focus primarily on the cable telecom services, and so because of that, it will be paid out of the FPB cable telecom marketing budget. The Assistant General Manager for Administration has reviewed the agreement and it meets with his approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this.
Is this the only training we provide for folks? Do we have in-house resources we provide for them as well?
I can't speak for Monique what other resources they have for the customer service department. As far as from cable telecom to customer services is the only thing that we've used.
So we don't have anything internal for refreshers during the year, or just background
My
information for
recollection was
onboarding?
that the last year's visit included some follow-up materials that that they've used, I assume, on a regular basis since then. I don't mean to speak for Monique, sure.
When the Renegade representative did come, she did leave with us some additional training advisory tools and different resources that we can access, and some things that will transition well from not just from cable telecom, but just overall general customer service.
When we talk about the one-on-one, is that they'll come back, spend one day with one individual, or are we talking about a couple hours with an individual? How is that one-on-one quarterly coaching visits? How does that work?
I think the goal would be to cover everybody over the quarter, and so I'm not sure as far as the specific time spent with the individuals, but I know that they were certainly spend, if there's how many folks on your team?
There are currently 14.
14, so over 4 meetings, and that would be 3 or 4 per visit, and then I believe it's a full day, so then a couple hours per team member, and then spread that over the visit.
Based on what she told me last year, there would be some side-by-side type coaching that she would be doing, kind of real-time role-playing type things, where the customer service rep would be able to ask specific questions, and she would be able to see how they're handling different phone calls, different walk-in customers, giving them feedback on how they can better handle a particular customer situation.
Well, I think these are very important. I know that a lot of the better restaurants will give a 3-week course in how to treat customers and pay their salaries during that period of time. As opposed to a restaurant I went in this morning to get a cup of coffee, and I asked for 1 creamer and 2 sugars, and I had to ask for it 3 times, and I still didn't get the creamer. So we need our people trained to answer the questions in a very effective and efficient manner.
Does this training include selling of products? In other words,
retention,
customers,
upgrades, that's certainly all part of the strategies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move for approving the statement of work from Renegade Communications in the amount of $17,500.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, motion carries. Number 28 this evening is consider approval of the tariff revision related to budget billing, technical matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Just a little background information. The Frankfort Plant Board offers budget billing and payments to its residential customers. Budget billing gives customers the opportunity to pay specified utility amounts each month instead of paying the actual billed amount, allowing for seasonally high bills for winter and summer to be spread out evenly throughout the year. On February the 17th, 2009, the board voted and passed the staff's request to include the proposed reconciliation of budget billing to take place in February of each year with an open enrollment period of May 1st through the 25th. Based on the information obtained from the customers and staff, the recommendation was made to change the open enrollment period and reconciliation to May of each year, and staff prepared a change, and the public hearing was held, notified via a written statement and released via the State Journal. Staff moved forward with the change in May of 2012 and has been following this procedure ever since. A review of the board minutes from December of 2008 through May 15th of 2012 does not indicate that a formal vote was taken by the board to change the open enrollment period or reconciliation from February to May. However, the process is currently in place and working well. A public hearing was held May 25th, 2016, to which there were no public objections, and staff recommended that the tariff be updated to reflect the current practice based on the success of budget billing since the change in reconciliation month, previous customer feedback, and current customer satisfaction. I'll answer any questions you may have.
I move that we make the change to the budget billing tariff.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, the motion carries. Number 29, consider approval of development, testing, customer education process, and implementation of cycle billing.
Yes, I'm the chair of the cycle billing committee, and we've met and looked at all the options. We're ready to go ahead with 2-cycle billing. There's been just 3 written comments on this. No one had a question at the hearing. There is some concern. This will only affect half of the customers, and it would be changing to 2 cycles per month. The bills would be due on the 15th and on the 1st. We're hoping, going through this process, that we'll make the transition in November. And to educate everyone on what it is, it'll be a little confusing to some customers because they may receive 2 bills during that month. But, and there has been some question on the basic fee to have service, which everyone pays 12 times a year, each monthly bill. And that will still be the same regardless of how it may look. That is our intention. So I feel that we're ready to go ahead with this. Monique or Cassie, did you want to add anything about how the cycle will be perceived in November, or how the change will happen in November?
Given that the implementation and the testing period all go smoothly, we do intend to move forward with the cycle billing. Approximately, as Ms. Rosen has stated, approximately half of our FPB customer base will be transitioned to the new cycle, and that will be based on their read periods, their read dates. Those customers that have their bills normally, their meters normally read between the 26th of the 1 month and the 10th of the following month, those would be the customers that would transition to the new billing cycle. And I know Mr. Ludwig had a concern at the public hearing with regard to the customer charge. The customer charge won't be changed. It won't be prorated. It does impact if the customer moves or stops service. The ideal customer would be one that has continuous 12 months of service, and so therefore they would have 12 customer charges. However, if a customer starts or stops their service anytime during the year, they will receive a customer charge for their old address and then another one for their new address. So there is a possibility that a customer could receive more than 12 customer charges in a year.
Okay.
But that has nothing to do with the cycle billing.
Okay. And I guess what we should mention too is the advantage of going to 2 cycles per month is to improve coverage of phones, people in the office, and also just smoothing out the workload.
Yes.
Is there anything you'd add to that, Monique?
No, that's about it.
Okay.
I'm sure y'all mentioned this before, and it may be a moot point, but, you know, we bill for cable a month in advance, and we bill for electric and water usage for that month. The cycle billing, will that have any effect? I guess primarily on the cable side, because we do bill in advance. How is that being?
It won't have an effect, because those customers that just have cable or telecom services, they will be transitioned into one of those billing cycles based on the route that they fall into, even though they don't have meters.
No, you misunderstood, I think.
I'm sorry.
Those that have all of our services, telecom and electric and water, will the fact that the cable is billed in advance, will that have any impact on the transition to cycle billing?
No, it won't.
Okay. My next question is, and I voiced this opinion, at the last meeting where we discussed this. I'm concerned that we're hitting our customers in a peak period of time when there's going to be a lot of expense, i.e. the holiday period. And so I'm concerned of the impact that it's going to have on those customers that enjoy the holidays.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if there's not a better time of the year to do this, maybe after the first of the year as far as the implementation, maybe the April, May, March, April time period. It just seems like that's more of a slower period. You're shot from your credit card bills that have come in over January have subsided, and you know, it might be easier or not as much of a burden on our customers if we don't do that in the middle of the holiday season.
There are some benefits to holding off, and I mean, it's going to be a major transition for half of our customers anyway. There are some benefits to waiting until after the first of the year to do it, as you mentioned, avoiding major holiday times. Historically, bills are lower in the April, May timeframe because you're coming out of your winter months when you're not using your heat, but you have yet to start using your air conditioning. So historically, those bills would be lower. Income tax refunds, and then also there's more time for households to restructure their budget based on them moving into the new cycle. So there are some advantages to that, and we are completely open to that option of holding off and doing that when it is less cumbersome and less burdensome to the public.
I mean, would there be any objection to doing it that way?
Well, there are a couple things there. First, by choosing November, we're looking at bills from September, October?
September, October, November.
Which tend to be lower than, say, bills in the middle of the winter or middle of the summer. Correct. And with the potential move to the new building, that will disrupt things, even under the best circumstances. So doing it at the same time that we're moving or have moved, I think would be unwise.
Well, we're moving into the building in December. We're talking about...
No, they said maybe the building would be ready December 31st.
Okay, so we're moving into the building in January. I don't think anybody wants to move on New Year's Day. So 3 months into the... we ought to have our stuff together 3 months in the building as using that same logic. We're getting ready to move in the November, December time period. You know, it just seems, I don't have a problem with cycle billing. I have a problem with the implementation date.
But there's no increase or decrease to the amount that they're paying. It's only a 15-day difference.
But if I'm paying 45 days, right, I'd be paying for 45 days of service, depending on where I fall?
You would be getting two bills. You would get one bill that would be due regularly on the 15th of the month, and then you would get another bill that would be due on the 1st of the month if you are in that new cycle.
So roughly it'd be a 45-day period, I'd be paying a full bill and then a partial bill.
Right.
Right in the middle of holiday time.
And
I mean, I'm assuming that the majority of our customers don't have a problem doing that, or half of our customers don't have a problem doing that, but I'm concerned about the half of the customers that do fall into that problem.
But there's still no, if I'm correct, there's still no additional monies that would be spent even though there's two bills, right?
There's no additional money. It would just, the customer would see those two bills closer together than they normally would.
So if I'm budgeting, I would be budgeting really for I would have a 15-day period in there where if I had other bills that came due at that time, then it would have an impact.
Yes.
And there's been some discussion of implementing measures to allow some grace there to ease that burden on some of the customers, right?
We've discussed implementing and relaxing some of the guidelines for payment arrangements regardless of when we do it, because it is going to, as we said, it is going to be customer impacting. So if we did it in November, or if we did it in January, or excuse me, in April, May timeframe, we would still be looking at relaxing those guidelines and being able to work with the customers as best we possibly can.
It just seems to me like when we're trying to be customer friendly wherever we can, this is not being customer friendly in November.
And so I said, we're open to that option of moving.
Herbie, is there a
April, May
schedule
time.
yet for the move into the admin building, and is there an elapsed time that we're expecting for that move to take?
We don't have an actual move-in date. You know, we're in the process of looking at ordering furniture, but what we've been putting on the back burner is the fact that they're going to give us the building in December. So, you know, I'm assuming.
Punch lists and things to work through from that point forward, so possession's not exactly ready to move in, right?
I think that when they turn the building over to us in December, there'll still be a punch list.
Right.
And I would assume the punch list would take 6 weeks.
Yeah. Do you have any broad estimates about what that actual move-in time, furniture install, transition of employees, what that elapsed time is going to be?
In the back of my mind, I've said the spring of 17 we'll be in the building.
So they got 2-3 months to get everybody moved up there, something like that.
Which, in looking at billing cycles, then we would, if we delayed this, we'd be at a peak heating and cooling situation. Well, heating.
What do y'all want to do, flip a coin on this?
Well,
You know, it's just, I think what's going to be beneficial to the customer. So it's my only concern, so.
Well, I make a motion, we approve the development, testing, and customer education process and implementation of cycle billing.
Second.
Any further discussion?
One point that I failed to make earlier was one of the advantages of cycle billing is that if someone has a water leak, they're going to receive their bill closer to when that leak is identified, and that was one of the other advantages of cycle billing.
Yeah, it's a good point. Amazing how many details there is to everything, you know. Okay, we have a motion and we've had a second. We're just talking. Any further discussion on the point? If not, we'll call for the issue. All in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so we have one nay, and we have 4 yeas. So we would have a motion would carry.
And to be clear, it's not about cycle billing, it's about implementation.
Okay, all right, so we're down to number 30. It's our old friend Windstream Agreement renewal. Consider approval of addendum to Windstream Agreement for purchase of additional bandwidth, $87,600.
Mr. Chairman and Board, staff would like you to consider both number 30 and 31 as the same item. It's either or, it's not both. Staff has a need. Our customers have presented us with a real need with their usage over the course of the last several months to purchase more bandwidth. Casey has used a tool over the past, an internal tool over the past few years, that when he gets to about 60% of usage of the bandwidth that we have, he makes preparations for the purchase of additional bandwidth. Today, when I talked to him about 4 o'clock today, we're sitting about 80%. So we're quite a bit over where we usually are. We wanted to hear tonight from Mr. Moore at KentuckyWired, and I know that he wasn't very specific on when in 2017 they might be able to have service available to us, or at what cost. He wasn't able to do that either. But our preference to fill the need that we have today is going with Windstream and not Time Warner. That is because a couple of reasons. One is the balance that we have today, or the lack of balance we have today in our internet access to Windstream. We have more bandwidth that serves our community on the east side, and we have less bandwidth from Windstream on the west side of town in our 2 meet points. And what Casey has brought to you in the past on number 30 is replacing the 2 1 gigabit links that we have on the west side and replace that with a 5 gigabit link that matches the 5 gigabit on the east side of town. And this, if the board was to approve number 30, it would come at a savings of about $44,000 a year. So what I'm saying is those two 1 gig links are $44,000 a year more than the one 5 gig link. Now, we also brought to you today for your consideration, if you did want to look at number 30, number 31 is to increase the 2 3 gigabit pipes that we buy from Time Warner and increase them to 6 gigabit each. That way we keep in place that balance on east and west that we have for Time Warner. It costs more. It's going to cost about $72,000 more per year than we're paying today. Again, we need the additional bandwidth. That's what I'm here to say more than anything. As we transition from the old head end to the new head end over the course of this summer, excuse me, the equipment that Casey has ordered and that has come in, and we will be doing the installation, like I said, over the course of the next 60 days or so, is going to provide access to significantly more bandwidth from the individual user. And I think I can speak for Casey and say that we have never been in a situation in offering broadband service or internet access in Frankfort where when we made more bandwidth available to the customer, they did not use it. So I would ask you today to consider 30 or 31 with the staff recommending that you approve number 30, the additional bandwidth from Windstream, because overall it's a better financial deal for the plant board, but it's also a better technical plan for the way that Casey has set up the network as it is. Now, I'm not the technician here, so if you have technical questions, I'd be happy to have you ask him of Casey. But just wanted to, that's really all I have on that item for you today.
Was this to approve number 30 and neglect 31?
I would ask that you consider number 30, and that if you approve number 30, that you would skip over number 31.
Okay, I got you.
So just one quick question on point of clarification. So just doing some quick math between the two, you said that 31 was more expensive than 30, but if you just divide it out, it comes out to $1.46 a megabyte or megabit for 30 and $1.37 a megabit for 31. So 31 seems cheaper.
Well, the math that I wanted to give you was today we spend about $10,500 a month for the 2 3 gigabit pipes. If you look on page look on page 211, you'll see that the charge for 2 6 gigabits is $16,500. $6,500, 12 months. That's where I came up with the $70-some thousand number. That's the math that I was trying to provide you.
I'm not sure how that relates to my question. Maybe I'm a little slow, I don't know.
So the reason we're going to be saving money, excuse me, is because the 2 Windstream 1 gig connections we have in place today that goes away. We're replacing it with 1 5 gig link.
Right.
And the cost for that is $44,000.
Oh, the delta is we won't be able to get rid of that other Windstream link, and so we're still paying the extra cost for the other bandwidth. Okay.
If we go the Time Warner way, we're just
you still got the
reducing anything.
Even though the bandwidth is cheaper from Time Warner, we're locked into that larger cost from their existing agreement with Windstream.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go to a higher bandwidth, you're going to see.
But even so, apples to apples, if the Windstream agreement wasn't there, we would be saving more money going with Time Warner. Just because the actual cost per megabit is lower from Time Warner than it is from Windstream.
Well, yeah, you're comparing an 8 gig link to a 5 gig link, but if you had both at 8 gig, they may be comparable. That's what I'm trying to say.
John, is item 30 the same one that we've been talking about since January, December?
I believe that Casey's brought this to you in April and May. I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
I think it's identical, actually.
And my biggest concern about all of this is having some, bigger picture about what's going on and some strategic path forward, and actually some usage and some demonstration of the need. And it touches on a larger concern I have with requests for information from the telecom group. I've still not received the information I asked after the first two public meetings. I followed up and still haven't received answers from those emails. And that seems to be a trend inside the telecom group, that it's very, very difficult to get any kind of responses and any kind of detail about the questions. John, you still owe me responses from questions from October. And I believe I've asked for those for 4 times. I've even asked the GM to ask you to provide them. And it got to the point where we had to get the board attorney involved to get you to provide the data. I mean, I really don't understand this reticence to have an open and honest discussion about what's going on inside the telecom division.
I'm not aware of not answering your questions you put to me.
I can send you a 6th email if you'd like.
That would be great. I also want to, I know you know the organizational chart. The IT department doesn't fall within the IT department. The IT department does not fall within the telecom department. And Mr. Jones and Mr. Pitzer do not work for me. And you don't always send me the questions that you send them. And so I, quite frankly, am not responsible for questions that do not come to me.
So, and actually, the other question that comes out of all this is, just looking at those rates, $1.37 or $1.46 per megabit. Do we do cost of service studies inside telecom?
We have done cost of service studies inside the telecom department.
When was the last one?
The last one was, I believe, 2011. It was on cable. Actually, it was the first one that I believe had ever been done on cable TV, broadband service, and telephone service.
So why? I mean, we do those regularly with water and with electric. Why do we not do those regularly with cable telecom?
Because we're a competitive service, and we try to match or beat the services that are that we compete with here in Frankfort every day. Unlike the electric and water departments that are essentially monopolies. Also, I think there are probably state rules that require by the Public Service Commission or other entities that require cost of service studies for electric and water. Those aren't required in the cable telecom department. I'd be happy to do those kind of things. It just has never been requested of the department.
Well, the thing that jumps out to me is, if we're paying $1.37 a megabyte or megabit, I keep saying megabyte, and we sell it for a dedicated line at $50 a megabit, that's a 3,600% markup on that commodity. What else goes into that pricing structure that drives that cost so high?
Yeah, I'd say there are several factors that include all the labor and benefits that go into the individual that installs and maintains that. There are also other items as far as the provisioning of the equipment and the ongoing maintenance of the plant itself. Those are all components, I would think, of the rate itself.
Well, I would still like to get answers to the questions I had from the first time we presented this before we move forward on either one of these agreements. And I'd be happy to resend the emails again. But you were copied, I believe, on the 2 that I sent out to Casey, and I believe the GM was copied as well. So.
We need this bad news now, right?
We've kicked this thing around for 2 months already. I make a motion to approve the addendum to Windstream Agreement for the purchase of additional bandwidth, $87,600.
Second.
Discussion.
Well, sharing information is an important part, and getting that information to the board is important. So, do we have enough information to make a decision?
I think so. We got a need. This broadband situation is such, we just have to keep moving.
I mean, we get beat up about it almost every day, that bandwidth is, the speed is too slow, it's intermittent, it's broken. We've got, neighborhoods that come in mass saying that they've got issues that all relate back to bandwidth, And again, instead of meeting the customer's needs and providing good service, we keep kicking this can down the road.
Well, that's a really good point. And to bring some clarity to that, this purchase won't affect that at all. The constraints we have on our ability to deliver service and the variants out there in our customer base are great. You know, we have a capacity to deliver service of approaching 7% in some of our worst neighborhoods. We've oversold the capacity in those neighborhoods by 93%. We have other neighborhoods that are approaching 100%, but thousands of our customers are in that sub 10% percentile group.
So what gets them fixed?
Those aren't related to the amount of bandwidth we have in reserve overall for the community. Those are related to the structure of the existing HFC network, and addressing that requires the node splits and the other equipment upgrades at significant costs that they're starting to undergo now. This particular purchase won't have a direct connection with the improvement of service for any of the customers. The only possible exception to that are the few high cap customers we have.
You know, I've never claimed to be an internet savvy, understanding a megabyte, gigabyte, but I have faith and confidence in the staff that we hired to provide that information and to make those recommendations to us. And it appears to me that the staff has made recommendations. They have looked at the need, and they have a solution to fix their need, to meet customer needs. And so, you know, I'm not a computer consultant, so I don't understand a lot of the things that you throw out there. But you know, like I said before, we have kicked this down the road, and we need to have it resolved. And pushing it off for you to get some information that you probably already have a good idea of the answer, but you keep pushing on it, doesn't solve the problem. So.
If I had the answer, I wouldn't ask for the bid.
If I could just respond to that just a little bit. The reason we look in advance for additional bandwidth is because many times the providers can take 6 to 12 months before they can actually deliver us the product. And so with the upgrades that we know are coming, we know that we're going to be in need of this bandwidth soon. And so that's why it's been on the agenda every month, so we can get it on here to let you know that, you know, the need is coming. We know it's going to be there. We just, you know, we need the board's help to get this done.
But again, you know, my comment is that, you know, this is part of a larger strategic, should be part of a larger strategic direction for the telecom group in general. And I've not been provided with information that makes me comfortable if that's the way this is going. I certainly appreciate that we need the lead time for the implementation and all of that, but the demonstration of the need and the timing and the overall strategic goal of the telecom group hasn't been demonstrated.
Well, this is one contract, and this whole subject of gigavolts broadband, we're going to have this in the future in lots of different ways, but I also have confidence in our professional staff, and they're telling me that we need to do this particular contract. We need to do this. It's my 2 cents.
Walt, if you've asked for information, I feel like our staff has provided it. If we haven't, there's been a mix-up in communication somewhere, because that's just not how we operate. If we're asked of something, we provide it.
And I would agree, and my experience with the other units has been very different. And administration, electrical, water have all been very, very responsive.
Well, give telecom another opportunity here, because we just don't operate like that. If we're asked for information, we provide it, and I think there's been a breakdown somewhere if you haven't gotten it.
I hope that
It's
improves.
my understanding that we had provided it, but please ask again. Maybe there's been a breakdown somewhere. The other thing I would like the board to know is, I think you had some concern. You wanted to hear from KentuckyWired. And staff, expressed the difficulty we've had in getting a response from KentuckyWired. And you saw my letters and my emails, and it was a little bit difficult to get them to respond. And you saw tonight, it's a little difficult to get a commitment from KentuckyWired, and I hope the board saw that. We're hearing it'll be 18 months before KentuckyWired hooks the first anchor into the ground. It's significantly down the road. We're hearing it's a whole lot more than 8 months delay in this project, a whole lot more.
And that 18-month comes from the folks that are doing the make ready, or?
The 18 months comes from discussions we've had from inside KentuckyWired.
Mr. Chairman, I call for the question.
I think we'll call this by member, please, Harvey. Vote yes is to approve this particular contract. A vote no would be to not approve it. So.
Yes.
Member Baldwin.
No.
Member Rovi.
No.
Member Ludwig.
Yes.
Member Green.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Kent makes number 31 moot, as I understand it.
Yes.
Okay, now, number 32 mercifully was moved up and is over with. It brings us to a group of 10 action items, number 33 through number 42. These all pertain to possible modifications or changes in the proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year, July 1. We can't get into all this evening, but we have time to have a special meeting to handle and examine this in the proper way. So I'm asking that we have a special meeting. I'd like to have the attendance of all the board members, if at all possible. And I don't know what date might be available with everything, but I don't know if upcoming Tuesday would work or not. I know I have to think about the availability of this facility and the members, of course.
What's the date of Tuesday?
That's the 28th. I'm wondering if the 29th would work, which is a Wednesday.
It works with me.
Tuesday, date, what day?
Tuesday's the 28th.
28th.
Wednesday is the 29th, which is, I propose possibly the 29th.
I'd just like to remind the board that by statute, we have to have it approved budget by the 30th.
By when?
The 30th.
June 30th.
30th.
So if we had it on the 28th, we have a little more breathing room there, right?
2 days.
Is either day feasible?
Sooner the better is all I can say.
So maybe a day this week would be a better thought.
It would be better for us, for sure.
So maybe Thursday, Friday this week.
I don't know that Thursday and Friday would be better.
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday as far as I know.
I could do Friday.
Friday would be difficult for me.
Okay. Time and place.
Oh, no, he said it would be difficult.
Yeah, Friday is difficult.
So it looks like
27th, if we went in the afternoon, I think would be fine. I can go get the calendar and check real quick if you'd like.
Oh, for the room.
Wait, what date?
Monday, the 27th.
No.
Okay, I've got
The
a
27th was Tuesday. Oh, I'm sorry, the 28th.
28th.
28th is a Tuesday.
But you're talking about the 27th.
No, I was talking about the 28th. I was
Oh.
looking at the 27th. I meant Tuesday.
Okay.
But I'd have to check. I can go check the room real quick if you'd like me to do that.
So David, I mean, do those 2 days actually give staff any time to react from?
We would be able to tell you the change into what the decisions of additional items added to the budget or removed, the net difference or effect to the budget. turning around complete copies, we should be fine.
And then we'd have to have another special meeting on the 30th to approve?
That's getting past my understanding of how it would go. We could give you, I know today we have a budget set that is the changes we discussed during the 23rd, 24th, 25th meetings with the board on the budget of May. So if the board's comfortable with me giving a net change, we could go that direction. But as far as I would prefer handing you a budget document that you would look at in its totality, understand the effects, thumbs up, thumbs down.
I guess my point is that whatever we do on the 28th, we'd have to then have another meeting, special meeting after that to approve, right? And we would have to do that prior to or on June 30. So we would also have to have a meeting on the 30th, right?
Unless the board were to say, we approve the budget with these changes.
Yeah.
And
What
then I can
about,
send the finals out.
we didn't talk about the 22nd, which is tomorrow. Wednesday, tomorrow.
I got a problem tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's why.
And I got a problem next Monday, so it's gotta be this Friday or Tuesday or Wednesday.
About you, James?
I'll be here whenever you tell me. Except for the 30th.
Okay.
But to be clear, you're not going to realistically be able to offer us a net change inside the same special meeting we have to have the discussion. You're going to need some time.
We would need a
So there's going to need
3-hour recess.
There's going to need to be 2 meetings or, yeah.
Right.
And we don't know what potential change might be. There might be no change, or there might be only minimal change.
Well, would we want to just continue right now?
I don't want to continue right now.
Oh.
I mean, it's getting late.
I mean, that was the agreement last
To
week.
get into all this, why, you know, because there are 10 items here. Some of them are technical. Some of them involve staff implications, money implications.
He's checking on the room.
Right, he's getting the calendar.
Alrighty, let's see. Monday is open, Tuesday is open, and Wednesday is open. If we did early morning on the 24th, which is Friday, I could do that, and the room is available.
Which day was that?
Friday, if we did early morning,
Well, I think it's important that we make it available for public commentary, so I think anything before 5 o'clock would be inappropriate.
Trying to herd 5 cats. You ever try to herd 5 cats?
Yeah, 5 pigs either.
How about Tuesday? Looks like by default it's coming down to Tuesday.
As long as that leaves enough time for David, and
Yeah.
we go ahead and schedule, I guess we'll have to go ahead and schedule the special meeting for the 30th as well.
David, do you do miracles or near miracles?
I mean, is that possible? Are we going to be able to get together and have a quorum to vote on the 30th for the budget?
if we do it in the morning.
Yeah. Same for Tuesday then, folks. 5 o'clock here, special meeting.
28th?
Yes, sir. Let's do that. And I think we can do things properly and well. David has a habit of doing things exceptionally well. We'll get it done.
Then do we need to schedule the morning of the 30th?
Yeah, I think we should do that as a safety matter because, you know, maybe a very, very brief meeting just to approve something. But
Got to notice
I
it.
think we should do that to be under the wire. I don't want to get into any House Bill 1 violations, even if they are technical.
Well, the only thing David would have to do is present the budget that he has right now and any amendment we would put to it, right? Could it be a separate item, be amendment to a budget?
He'll just need time to prepare that, so.
But it doesn't take long to prepare an amendment to it if he's already got the budget.
Well, he's told us 3 hours.
We can provide what we have today and just show you the impact of whatever the board chooses to keep or omit.
Right.
Or we can bring to you, like we have in the past, a final document for approval. It's the board's pleasure.
Well, I think to get the final document might be a problem.
Between the 28th and 30th, we could turn it around.
Okay.
A time on the 30th?
What time's available?
8 o'clock? Or 9?
You're making 9 for me.
9's all right with me.
9's fine with me. That's when the bank opens, so.
So we're figuring on a special meeting Tuesday, 28th of June at 5 o'clock here. And then we can have a meeting if necessary to approve it on Thursday morning of the 30th at 9 o'clock.
Now, does this have to go in the paper the weekend?
But it has to be 24 hours.
24
It's not a
hours.
hearing. A hearing is the longer time frame.
Okay. All right. Let's see, where are we?
Or are we ready to
Okay, I think we're down to old new business, but we already heard the water treatment chemicals. Do we have any other old and new business?
Yes, I have one request. I know the Tanglewood Neighborhood Association or Tanglewood effort met a couple times in the past month, and is there a committee report?
There is, but it needs to be done in closed session.
Which we're gonna do tonight.
Oh, okay. So it has to do with money, or?
No, we can do it tonight.
No,
in
no,
closed
no.
session.
I mean, that we have to discuss Tanglewood in a closed session is because it has to do with money?
Because it has to do with legal matters.
Okay.
Okay, any more?
I have one more.
Okay.
So, a couple of things. One, in the first, and Kathy's not here unfortunately, but in the first budget session, we approved the minutes from the special meeting the week prior. And
The one at the clubhouse?
The one at the clubhouse, that's right. And I noticed that the meeting notes weren't complete. We didn't include the additional item that Scott brought up, and I'd like to have those amended and have Scott's commentary included on those minutes. And also, you know, I kind of wanted to talk to the other board members, and I'm not certain how to have this conversation, and I've gone back and forth with it, but you know, I think the open meetings rules and laws are really important, and a couple of things concern me, and I want to make sure we're, you know, sticking to the letter of the law and we're above reproach and all that. And in that special meeting that pertained to those notes, in closed session, you know, we effectively, you know, had a discussion, took action, and you know, I think that's inappropriate. And I think it's fine to have, I don't have any issue with the closed session, but I think the appropriate procedure is to adjourn from that closed session and then have the vote after an open session. And I think that's the way that's supposed to work. So I'd like to make sure we're doing that in the future. And my other concern is along Anna Marie's question, in that the Tanglewood Association, our committee that's mediating with them, is a committee of the plant board, and so is also subject to those open meetings rules. And so any of those committee meetings that are held have to be noticed, have to have minutes. You can certainly have a closed session, but to take action, it's necessary to come out of the closed session. And I've reviewed this with the board counsel, and this is in fact the way it works. So we need to start doing that as well.
And you're saying that we're not doing that?
I've not seen any minutes. I've not seen any
We've had
notice.
2 Tanglewood meetings.
I've not seen any public notice for those meetings. I've
The
not
public
seen-
notices have been on the door, well, right outside the door going into the clubhouse.
So
We've
they've
had-
been noticed the same way as we notice all the other meetings?
Exactly.
And
We've-
per our agreement earlier, those meetings are filmed and
No,
placed
those
on-
meetings are not filmed.
Well, we made an agreement.
No.
We made a motion earlier we accepted a motion earlier in
So
the
are
year
you
that
telling
we
me,
would film those.
excuse me, Mr. Baldwin, are you telling me that the cycle billing committee meetings were video?
They were not.
Okay, I rest my case.
Well, but they were noticed.
They
per-
were committee meetings,
they
is that
were-
correct?
They were noticed per all of the other meetings.
And so have the Tanglewood Neighborhood Association Landscaping Committee meetings.
And where are the minutes from those meetings?
Those minutes are from 2 meetings that was conducted prior to tonight's meeting, post our last board meeting. Therefore, there's been no meeting to bring them forward to. They will be presented tonight in closed meeting, as I stated to Ms. Rosen, because they are confidential in nature, because they do discuss items that are contained in the confidentiality agreement with the post-mediation that was signed by the mediation team that went up on January the 21st. So, I'll be more than happy, and I will provide those notes, much like Ms. Rosen's, when we go into closed session.
Very well. But again, my point, I want to make
No,
sure that we're
your
following.
point is you're trying to grandstand.
No, not at all.
No, it is, and
No, it's not.
you're really out of order.
I'm not.
So we can discuss this.
We're lawful. I've never been in a closed session where there was a vote taken.
We didn't take a vote, but we took
We do
action.
not take votes in
We didn't take a vote, but we took action.
So,
And I believe your quote was, we can't take a vote, but how does everybody feel? And I believe that's taking
there
action.
has to be discussion.
But, and again, the proper procedure is to come out of closed session and then vote and take action.
I think that's right. Any GM comments this evening? Okay, we request permission to have, we need a closed session, is that right, Hans? Okay, request permission to have a closed session pursuant to KRS 618101C for the discussion of proposed or pending litigation against or on behalf of FPB.
Second.
For KRS 8101F for discussions that might lead to appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an employee. And KRS 618101B for discussion of the future acquisition or sale of real property. So I'm asking for a closed session.
Second.
Okay, we'll go into closed session here in a moment.